A word to the wise, we are an explicit podcast, tackling content with adult themes as well as entering spoiler territory. If you aren't caught up with us, and this week that would be from, what's the first chapter we did?
The Count and His Lord.
The Count and His Lord through Game of Snakes and Mongoose. Mongoose and Snakes? Snaky Mongoose things. If you haven't read up to that, start reading, because you've got like a few seconds before we're done talking and we jump into it.
In addition, this episode is sponsored by Beer is the Mind Killer. You can check him out over on Etsy. He does all kinds of very fun, nerdy designs, all sorts of different things, shirts, and sweatshirts that we really love and adore, including many of the favorite series that we've talked about. I'm actually wearing a design from him right now, Break the Chains. This one is specific to Lit Escalates, though, in a drop that's done there, but Kevin does excellent work. You can get 10% off any of his designs directly on his Etsy by using our code MADNESS. Madness.
Hey, you asked me for shirt sizes, and then I haven't gotten any shirts, and I got all excited, you know?
Oh, that's because some of them are on back order. Don't worry about it.
Damn it. Okay.
Those are not from Kevin. Those are from Christopher Rocchio. But
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want more Kevin shirts too, so I need to start ordering.
All right. Well, with that, we'll see you in the episode, I guess. Cut. I don't know. I'm going to fix something there. 3.
We'll see you in the episode, I guess.
3, 2, 1. Hey there, this is Kross.
And I have been known as Josh in the past.
And we are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. You should think of us as your intoxicating weekly book club. I
feel intoxicated.
That shot
I'm actually
might kill me.
Yeah, no, one shot, and it's trying to take me down. How you doing? Books.
Books. We're here to talk about book. I'm very excited to talk about this book today. For everyone listening at home, of course, is our 5th episode talking about The Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio. We're over the halfway mark already. This week we're reading The Count and His Lord through a game of snakes and mongoose. It should be like snake and mongoose, snakes and mongooses. It's whatever. It's fine.
Slither and Chomp. Yeah, for sure.
Slither and Chomp. But Josh, I'd love to hear your vibes, your reaction to this new dramatic shift that we have week to week.
Man, this book is a lot of different books, isn't it?
It really is.
I'm really enjoying the book. Obviously, I'm here. I will say this section was probably the section I found like my mind kind of wandering whenever I was listening. Had to go back a little bit. Like, it's not as like immediately gripping, engaging of a segment, especially coming out of a Colosseum arc, which was just very much so my shit, you know.
Right.
So I will say a little less like gripping, a little less engaging, but not a fault of it, just a different type of moment in the story. There's a lot of character building here, a lot of new characters, I think we actually see Hadrian. It's one of those moments where we kind of get to see Hadrian back in the setting that we start in. So we do get to see kind of a one-to-one his growth a little bit in some spots. Also the spots where he's still super naive. One thing I noticed in this section, and this is just kind of a side tangent, I have a personal theory or belief that this segment of book had a number of late additions or rewrites.
Why is that?
Not specific to the writing, but as I've mentioned, I do most of this on audiobook, and something as a audio engineer and editor that I'm very tuned into is whenever there's an audio quality shift or like a punch in, and this section probably had the most punch ins that I've noticed. So I usually associate that with like, we recorded the audiobook, but then there were some last minute changes, so we had to go back and do some punch ins. And there was like 3 or 4 of them in the section, which is I haven't noticed. I think I've noticed 1 so far in the entire book up to this point.
Yeah, there are a number, and I'm almost immune to them at the moment because I'm reading the 7th book, and there's like an audio quality difference, which is something that just would happen over time. But in addition, there are a number of punch-ins because that book is, it's like you have to record Way of Kings and then like there are going to be edits. So you start early and then you edit and punch in. And especially the beginning of that book had a lot of punch-ins. So
yeah, and I think especially with later books, like especially whenever you're ending a series, they're trying to stay on timelines. So like they're recording as it's being finalized. So whereas a first book, there's not going to be as many punch-ins, so they stand out a bit more because it was probably pretty much finished by the time it was like, yeah, we'll publish this, let's get it recorded. But then I noticed that in this section that there's a couple little signs that there were, in my opinion, it was probably just a shorter section originally, and late in the game just kind of got expanded a bit, is my guess. That's my best guess.
That's interesting. I actually feel like this section got cut down. Okay. And the reason that I feel that way is because I feel like most of those punch-ins, as far as I could tell from an audio perspective, seemed to be more dense sentences so as to maybe like replace full paragraphs.
Okay.
And then I think like The Cage, the chapter, one of the chapters that's much later here, that's a great example of a chapter that I think was entirely added to give context.
A little 4-minute chapter that just takes you from one spot to another. The Cage is one that I noticed from like, I think that that was just an addition. They needed a little more context. But now that you mention it, I do think that there's probably a truncating of paragraphs happening here.
Yeah, I feel like this section comparatively is maybe a victim more of cuts, but definitely of an editing hand a little bit late in the game.
Yeah, but that's just something I noticed. That's not like a notation on its quality or a critique or anything. I'm very interested by the development process of all of these different moving parts to make a book and have it published and have it edited and make an audio book, and like it's a team effort. We like to think about books as like that one medium, I think, or at least I have. That's like that one medium where just one guy can sit down and make a masterpiece, but that's not true. Like it's still a fucking group effort. It's a bunch of people coming together to make something on this scale, and it's I'm interested by the production of books as much as I am the reading of them. So thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, a book is composed typically of like 15 people at least that are working on it. You've got so many different editors that are doing different specific kinds of edits. You've got your audiobook engineer, you've got the guy who's actually doing the recording, you've got the narrator themselves, you've got people of whom are doing the script adjustments, and and
things like that. Before you
legible.
Even factor in beta readers and everything else. So yeah, production is a lot more than people think. That's why I tried to give, when we were reading the first lie, I gave what's her name, Gillian Redfern, a ton of credit because she was like the primary editor for practically all that Joe did. And you can tell that when she edits and like they publish the versions of Brandon Sanderson's books in the United States, because she's the UK editor, and they're funnier. Like the jokes land a little bit tighter. There's just some subtle differences. That's a Gillian book. That's awesome. I'll have to take a little dive down a rabbit hole for that.
Yeah, she's great. Lovely editor, but you got to pay attention to those kind of things is the other thing. Yeah, it's tough too. So
definitely. Well, I mean, like as a drummer and music producer, like I'm the type of guy who likes to listen a little past the lyrics, if that makes sense.
Right.
So yeah.
All right, cool. Well, with that, I think we can get into breaking down this section. We'll start with the Count and his lord. We return to Hadrian, waking up having been stunned in the gaol from before, in unfamiliar company with that of Lord Balian Mataro looking over him, knowing exactly who Hadrian is and what they're to do with him. While he evades execution, we're also introduced to Luther Aston Shin Mataro, his husband. We get a little more detail as to how absurd it is to potentially turn down Lorca College itself, as Hade did. There's so many different cool details here. What'd you think? The royals.
Well, not to you have it written down, but I was going to bring it up to you, so not to steal too much wind out of your sails.
Do it.
But I fucking love Luther of the too many surnames. One of those moments that is like not super few and far between, but every now and then there's just like a nice witty pop in this book, and they stand out because of how fucking dark the rest of it can be.
Yeah, right.
And that was one of them. I'd like a good chuckle just like on my walk listening to that. But
that one caught me like in the chin. I was like not expecting it when I was going through and reading or listening to it in the plane. I'm like at 4 a.m. I was like, ha.
Yeah, and it's like a subtle dig on this specific person, the specific character from Hadrian, but it's also like I think a little bit of like a writerly dig at all of these surnames that fantasy and sci-fi have to shove in there to sound
Yeah.
important, you know.
Right, exactly.
So I really enjoyed that part. But also, yeah, such a cool little moment when they're like, he's like, "Oh, sold me," and Lord Balian's like, "Oh, like what? Sold you to uh some baron?" He's like, or some baroness, and he's like, "No," and he's like, "A baron? I mean, that's charming too." Um, all of it to lead up to like, why would you possibly throw away your life? Like, what was so bad? And he's like, sold me to the chantry, and just record scratch, you know, like, oh yeah, you want to live here? You know?
You want to come here? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then the other thing that you were talking about with the kind of reaction, like up until this point, we don't even really ever, we can assume based on the general scale that's been set up for the chantry and the empire and things, that there's multiple like chantry colleges, but we're never really like given an example of the fact that it's like Hadrian didn't run away from the school, he ran away from like a school of many that is like the biggest one, that like the most important of the most important begin their illustrious chantry careers of torture and death and propaganda at, you know. So
Right.
it's definitely, this is one of those moments where, like I mentioned, this whole segment, everything we read, has a lot of subtle world building, a lot of kind of growth of the characters and placement setting for like what I feel like is probably ramping up to be the back third kind of not just conclusion, but finale of this book. You know, it seems like the pieces are being set, and that was like one of those little small sentences that I felt like is really important.
Yeah, building up Lorica and like this whole idea, and then, you know, getting a sort of antagonist even in the chantry and Gilliam Vas, you know, last week, and then kind of beginning to build him up more and more and more, you know.
And it's like, you know, if Hadrian did go there, there's a solid chance like he would have been Gilliam Vas's superior probably even by now at that point, you know, like,
yeah,
for where he was going. That's not just like, oh, like I would have been in the chantry with you. You don't really know me. You don't know what you're talking about. But like, no, you would have been taking your orders from me if I had done that. Like, is at least the implication I get from it. You know?
I totally agree with you. I definitely think that that's the implication, you know, especially when they threaten each other a little bit later, which we'll definitely talk about.
I love that chapter. Yeah, but
yeah. So Balian himself Balian questions himself what they should do with the boy, and we finally get the amount of time that's passed since Delos. 35 years. Hadrian has been gone. His brother, now significantly older than them, and now he's to serve the Mataros as a language tutor, as this prisoner, as we mentioned.
There's implications in that time frame that I really like. I think that there's an aspect where like you could subvert expectations and have it be pretty much the amount of time he was expected to be gone, or maybe even like less than 13 years, like this happened quickly. Or I think that there's a desire as like a writer or storyteller to go like with an extreme number, you know. So like I like that the 35 years, it's not a crazy number, but it's enough to shift paradigms of like what's going on back home. It's enough to have the world a little, or the galaxy, universe, whatever, a little bit different than what he would have expected. It's enough time, but it's like, I think it's a very reserved big number, and I like appreciate that. I think it allows you to still have like Crispin's still around. He's just his older brother by a lot now, you know. It doesn't like shift him and drop him completely into the deep space of the unknown, but like it definitely shifts his place in the world a lot, and I like that choice.
Yeah, I think in addition to the reasons that you cited there, what's interesting to me about 35 years is that it also paints this other picture where we are, how do I say this?
Well, everybody knows 35 years old is whenever you're basically just old and dead now. So
yeah, right. I've 4 years to go. Yikes.
Same.
But so bad. No, 35 years is enough time for them to have completely distanced themselves, and for Delos to stop looking. You know, for Delos to like, there's enough there that like, hey, it's impossible. You're trying to find an atom, you know, in a in a child's ball pit, effectively.
Right.
That is the universe. So it's already incredibly difficult. But layer in, like, of course, they would have probably tried for a couple of years and decades, and obviously there's still the chance that he could come up, and those spheres are distant. But no one's actively looking for a missing Palatine boy.
Well, and there's an interesting aspect within that, though, where it's long enough for them to have stopped looking, but not long enough for the threat of being found to have gone away.
Right. Yes.
Which I think is really smart. If it had been 200 years, is his dad even alive? Like, can he just go? Is there anything to fear at that point? But it's been 35 years, long enough to where if he were to pop back up, it would be a problem. But he has some leeway where no one's looking for him.
Yeah, it's a perfect window, and it is, for specifically this story and where it intends to shake out.
Yeah, it gives enough freedom to like allow it wouldn't make sense for Balian to be like, yeah, I'll harbor a fugitive that's actively being sought after. But it wouldn't make sense for Hadrian to be like, yeah, I'll stay here as your prisoner if he could just escape with no real threat, So very solid window choice, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, he adopts a name, and he chooses to be Hadrian Gibson, which of course is a great nod back to his own mentor. It's cute. It's nice. It does throw me off every once in a while throughout this section, being like, well,
it even throws him off. There's like one specific spot where he's like, oh yeah, and that's whenever my teacher.
I think he's talking to Valka at that point.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I like the choice of Gibson. He also like cuts him off. They're like, we'll have to have a name, Gibson, Amy Gibson. And that's nice. That's nice that he's like, I know my name. I want this one.
Yeah, right. Gibson. There is one lovely reflection just at the end of this chapter where he asks why he approached the Cielsen to begin with, why he went up to Makasam to have that conversation. And I love the answer that he gives. And it's because he wanted to see if he was a monster. And Hadrian doesn't think so.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in this whole section that we'll get to. Especially in the last chapter, where it's really causing, like, it's impossible to read it and not heavily question what the Chantry knows about the Cielsen and what we're not being told. Because I feel like it goes beyond just Hadrian being like, oh, I wanted to know if it was monster. I don't think it was. Like, it had some level of, for lack of a better word, humanity to it whenever he was speaking to it. But, like, there's also this thing that's talked about later where, like, the very idea of communicating with the Cielsen is heresy. We don't want their surrender. We want them wiped out. Even speaking its tongue, we could call you a witch for that. Like, there's all this stuff where it's like, we want people to have to be in the dark about who or what the Cielsen are, or what they want. Like, it feels like the Chantry has more information here. But we'll dive into that later. But like, this section definitely makes me think about that. So,
yeah, I think that, to your point at the very beginning of this episode, where you're like, this section is kind of a step backwards in some ways, or from like where we were at before from an energy perspective. It definitely is. I don't disagree. But I do think that what it does inadvertently for world building is just excellent. Like what not inadvertently, but what it does very intentionally, painting the primary antagonist finally, in some way, makes it really compelling.
No, I think it's not so much that it's that it like suffers for anything, but just that since the very first section, I haven't felt like this much kind of new information thrown at me, with very little in the way yet of like payoff, action, anything like that. It's very much just a stage setting, world building, placing the pieces kind of a section. All that to say, it does it really well, and it definitely like makes me very suspicious about a bunch of stuff.
And intrigued, hopefully.
Intrigued, very much so. I'll just say this is a great book. I'm intrigued all the time, but
I want a little bit more pits, man.
Okay, for me personally, I fucking love like Colosseum pit fights. That shit just gets me. So to come out of that into this, it definitely also like just, I think that it's important to note that whenever people read books, the book isn't just a book. It's you experiencing a story wherever you are in life, whoever you are in the moment, whatever's going on. had a really fucking busy week, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So like, I think that was part of it. I was distracted, so it took me a little longer to get into it. But on my second listen through specifically is whenever I really locked in and started like appreciating a lot of it. So I don't want to say it's just because this is a slower section of the book. I was also just very distracted on my first listen. But I think that like, had it been the Colosso section, whenever I was this busy, it wouldn't have mattered that I was busy. I'd have been like, oh yeah, I'll make time for this. But this section was like one that I kind of had to like remind myself to be intentional about listening to and not let my mind wander during.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. I think with that we can move into Aeneas and Dorian, the little lordlings. I fucking love the first line of the section. It's so good. My chambers fitted me like new teeth and the clothes like old snakeskin. Man, I didn't listen to this one immediately like I did over the course of the week, but I read it and I was like, oh God, that's so fucking delicious. And I didn't pull that many quotes this week, and now it's just
no, that's some great prose, especially like whenever you break it down, you know, like I think fitted me like new teeth. I that's just simple, easy to understand. It fits wrong, it feels wrong. But that clothes like old snakeskin, I really love that, because that's a piece of him he's already shed and done away with that he never expected to climb back into, you know. And then those, but for us,
fitted like new teeth is also so foreign. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's like, oh, what do you mean? Like,
which, and he specifically has already mentioned, like whenever he got mugged in Maidwa, like he got new teeth, and he was like, it feels really uncomfortable.
Right.
So it's like it's this uncomfortable thing that you know you'll get used to, but then the old snakeskin is like slithering back into that part of you you've already shed off. It's really, really good. Really evocative, an insane amount of like personal feeling shoved into one sentence, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Very much like going back to a high school reunion, you know, in a sentence.
Yeah, that's not bad.
So finding himself trapped, Hadrian reflects on how much worse this is than Devil's Rest and what they are to do as we're introduced to Lady Aeneas and Lord Dorian, the children of the Mataros. Hadrian reflects on their welcoming him to Borosevo, thinking that they don't understand or get the depth of his reality, or what Borosevo really is. You know, they are lordlings. You drew this comparison at the beginning, but like he's seeing himself in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. I do love the, like, it's almost a very cinematic prose where he flashes back to all of the things that he experienced whenever they say welcome to Borosevo.
Cat, you know, and
like,
he's living in the gutters,
like, welcome to Borosevo,
robbed.
and it's just like, pop, 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 pop. Oh, God. And he's like, yeah, thanks.
PTSD flashback, yeah.
I've been here a while, actually. It has not been good. I think that of the two of them, like, he does draw certain parallels to Dorian. I think he does not ever explicitly draw parallels between him and Aeneas. But I think that in the sense of the Aeneas and Dorian relationship, Aeneas is very much so the Hadrian, which makes me think there's more kind of going on in her mind, maybe a little schemy. Like, I feel like I distrust Aeneas in a way that I don't distrust Dorian. I think that Dorian is just... he enjoys being a rich little idiot and he likes sports, you know, like, and that's fine.
Right.
But Aeneas is up to something. I just can't prove it yet. You know, like the Dokes meme where
yeah, exactly. 100% correct. Yeah. I definitely agree with you. Aeneas definitely has like something else going on, but Dorian just, I love the comparison to Sports Boy, because that's pretty much what he is. You know, he's not full himbo. He's not a stupid idiot. But he does have a little bit of that going on.
No, yeah, he has a brain. He just uses it mostly for sports.
I love that key's the color.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. For anybody who's just listening, if this makes it into the episode,
it will.
My camera needs to key specifically into the exact color that is my brewmate beer holder. So anytime I lose focus, I just have to hold the beer next to my face, and then everything's fine.
It's so funny.
I can't believe you figured that out. That's insane to me.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
that was in last episode. So I just want to know how many episodes this will get referred to in. You know?
Yeah, right.
How long of a running joke can this be? Can people start sending me this exact color blue, just like little cue cards that I can hold up?
We show up at a convention somewhere and someone just brings up
just hands me a little paint swatch. Like, here, use this.
We found something a little bit more effective.
Exactly. But yeah.
Go ahead.
This section we meet these two. I feel like there's a level of like cringing that you can feel Hadrian doing, that like you yourself are doing, knowing how much like Hadrian at the beginning of this book these two people are and how much has changed for him. It feels gross almost, you know. He also like is referring them to children and they're the same goddamn age basically.
Right, yeah.
And then as many times have happened in this book, ones you like to point out, I see here you put who was it said pride is blind, or was it love? Like there's like these little quotes in there that we get to pull, and that's fun. But yeah,
this is an interesting one because it's actually a blend of kind of two different things. So who said pride is blind? There's a quote that's very similar to this that's from C.S. Lewis that is pride is blind in like The Face of God or something like that. It's something adjacent there. It was in one of his essay collections that he had written. But or was it love? Love is blind is Geoffrey Chaucer. So
no, that's Netflix.
yeah, it is. You're right, but, Josh. It definitely is.
I think it's in this section also where he's like drawing one being married to a very good. No, it's not.
I think he draws in the much later section because I don't think he's drawing it here.
Okay.
Right? Because I don't think he's drawing it here. I think he's just talking to them.
Specifically, there. I think he does draw them later, or like there is a moment of drawing later, but specifically in this one, because they see the portrait of Borosevo and realize that he can draw.
Yes. They find his drawings.
Yes, there is a line I love a lot here, being someone who is married to a very good artist who has. I have witnessed this in real time so much, where he said, like, he's like, it's insane, like how quickly someone who finds out you have a talent for drawing will ask, "Can you draw people?" Immediately followed by, and then he drops back into the quote from Dorian, "Can you draw me?" You know, like that is such a reality for anybody with any like physical artistic talent of of the image based arts. Oh wow, you can draw? Do you draw people? Can you draw me?
Well, in addition, his critique of Aeneas's look on Borosevo, right? He's like, she doesn't see the shadow in it. She doesn't see the darkness that I've intentionally painted. Yeah. She just sees
and it's interesting because he's drawing it from his from specifically the viewpoint of where he's at up here in the palace. So this is the way she's used to seeing the city. He's drawing it with the shadows, with the darkness, with the grit. But she sees that every day. It just doesn't register. So why would it register in this picture? You know.
Right.
So I thought that was a really interesting thing too, the way how they both view not just the same image of Borosevo from up here, but his painting in his mind captures the dark underbelly, and she just ignores it like she always does, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I for whatever reason, even though I'm now seeing in my notes here, I mentally placed this in the later section. I was like, that's the only time that he draws. No, it's totally here. But yeah, in addition, there's a little bit of Jadian exchange here, and we start to get an impression of Jadian. We'll talk a lot more about this later when we actually get into the tutoring sessions and whatnot. But it's interesting to get a little bit of another language. I think that this is the 5th or 6th language that we've seen on page.
Yeah, man. Someone call up the ghost of J.R.R. Tolkien, because Rocchio loves linguistics. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's worth noting that Rocchio does have a degree in rhetoric. That's what his degree is in. And he studied rhetoric, and
I didn't even know you could study Chronicles of Riddick as a major.
I mean, the game is really like where a lot of people draw the line where they haven't experienced it. You know what I mean?
Right,
Escape from Blackgate, I think is what it's called. Yeah. Apparently really good, by the way. I haven't played it, but
I don't know. I'm going to be real. I've never seen a Chronicles of Riddick movie.
What? Not even
How many
Pitch
times
Black?
do I have to tell you? I don't I don't have as much experience with sci-fi, you know.
That's true. That's true. I
feel like I should see Pitch Black at some point.
Pitch Black is an incredible movie. The others are fun.
Yep, that's my understanding.
But not in like a Fast and the Furious fun way, if that makes sense. Like they're better than that.
So
they're
Vin
more
Diesel
like
never says family in it
family.
At all?
No,
like, damn.
Definitely not.
All right, I don't even want to watch it. So Jason Statham never shows up, and he's like, "Hey, it's the Chronicles of Riddick."
Not even once.
Damn.
So to end the chapter, Hadrian is going to have a look down on his friends from the box with the little lordlings at the next fight, which is where we find ourselves.
There's one more thing I want to talk about in this chapter. That's my bad. I got really distracted by the Chronicles of Riddick. There's a moment whenever they're speaking Jedian that Dorian pronounces something just a little wrong, and then he corrects him, and Hadrian wonders if that mistake was on purpose to test him. Do you think it was, or do you think Hadrian is such like a kind of clever, a little schemy, mistrusting person to where he's projecting that onto Dorian?
Well, I feel like I have to start with what's your answer, because this is a podcast focused on mostly your fixations, and then I'll give you mine.
I think Dorian was testing him. I don't think Dorian's the himbo that he maybe comes off as by being into the Colosso.
I think that Hadrian in the future is adding drama here. But I'm not 100% on that, obviously, but I do get the feeling, and this is just the vibe that we get from Dorian otherwise, right? Like, Dorian doesn't seem to have...
Dorian doesn't seem like the person that would test him, though. He seems like a trusting... He doesn't have any reason to be like, my father... They don't know anything about Hadrian. Their dad was like, hey, I got you a tutor. Why would he be like, you actually speak Judean? You know, like, why would he assume he doesn't? But yeah, I don't know.
Well, exactly. And so my extra layer thought on top of that is something you already pointed out with Anais, right? Which is that, like, she appears to be scheming. Future Dorian writing the story and telling it and adding a little flair for the dramatic. Future Hadrian.
Wait, this is all... Oh my God, you just let it slip. The big twist. No! It was Dorian the whole time. Dorian all the way down, baby.
Dorian all the way down. No, but to the point, I do believe that maybe this is Hadrian adding a little flourish to maybe misdirect away from Anais and other things that are going on to make you question Dorian and maybe his intent a little bit. Wherein I believe more honestly in the intent that, like, Dorian was always just kind of mostly a good guy, good lad.
Yeah.
As we kind of know him, you know?
Yeah, we'll see. You could be lying to my face right now.
I absolutely could be.
You're good at that.
This beer is really good, man. Really bad. Really bad beer.
Anyways, the next chapter is Lose the Stars.
And this is a fucking dour chapter, man. This is like a browbeater of it just makes me sad, mostly. We find Hadrian confronted with the death of friend Erdo, that we see him executed in the pit, killed by 2 different crossbow bolts as they're shot at him. He's killed by Jaffa, the javelin, of whom we know prefers javelins, but doesn't appear to fucking use javelins anytime we've seen him, which is absurd in its own right. Yeah. He sets a glass on the ledge for him as he's once again wrapped in the familiar trappings of luxury, but with a wildly different appreciation for them as well, and like understanding sort of what it's like being up here now.
There's a lot in this chapter that I want to talk about. There's one thing, because it happens in this chapter, but the specific sentence is way later, I do want to bring up that I like a lot. Later, whenever talking about what happens here with somebody else, it's specifically, what's his name? Whenever Hadrian meets up with one of the
Polino?
Yes, Polino. Polino calls this moment whenever they're like kind of referring back to it, and they're like, "Oh, did you hear about Erdo?" And he's like, "I saw it." He says those antique weapon demos are always stacked against us, which to me that's just like a little tiny detail where this is if it's called an antique weapon demo, the point of this isn't blood sport. The point of this isn't athleticism. It's not about fighting the gladiators, really. It's just like, hey, this is how crossbows worked, and they to show how crossbows work, they kill people, you know, like, and that's like such a small detail where it's like, for some reason it's worse than just like, hey, we're gonna watch gladiators struggle against these people and life and death are on the line. It's like, all right, kids, and this is how a crossbow worked. Run at me. and that guy's dead. Like I bring some level of like the casual brutality to it out for such a throwaway line. I know that they talk about it later, and we'll talk about that chapter,
Right.
just because that's this moment. Like that's one of those things that on a reread recolored this scene, where Hadrian's not just watching somebody who's not necessarily a friend, but somebody you knew, somebody you liked, die, not even in like a cool bout, but in an antiques weapon demo. Like
right.
Yeah. It's rough.
There's a cruelty there, and for the sake of it, there's a lot of drinking over the course of this week that happens at different times. This is one of them. So cheers. To Erdo, but not, specifically. Well, I mean, I guess specifically, I don't know, whatever. I say specifically, we often drink for character deaths as well. Like a little cheers, maybe a send-off speech if we like them. But Erdo is not a character that we know, not like an important...
Erdo is one of those types of people that made a science out of their body and ate with a measuring spoon. So I feel like I know Erdo because I know people like that. So
cheers. My father. Yep. Hi, Dad.
Bye, Tim.
Bye, Tim. Fair. Yeah, man, but what a dour scene to again, the very beginning of this book, we're in the Colosso pretty early on. Hadrian's commenting on like the brutality, not appreciating it, but like not like the loss of human life, not like tangibly in that sort of way. And now, not only having lived and experienced it, he's like, man, I'm back in the box. And now like I understand what it's like to be down there risking my life all the time. And then to just see it be played off as this sort of casual cruelty. In addition, I think he also remarks that there's cheers when like they're doing well, and there's cheers when the other team is doing well. It's just cheering for the violence of it, not for either side. There's no winners. Who cares?
There's also a moment, and I wish I like wrote down or checked, but it's not that big of a deal. The exact like sentence, but while everybody's kind of like conversing, and while this is going on after that death happens, and everything kind of moves forward, whenever he goes and takes a drink and sets it on the ledge for Erdo, there's a specific word used in that, if I remember correctly, where he drifts away from the crowd towards the opening of the box. And I think it's in this section. I know that he uses drift and he heads towards an opening. He drifts towards a window, and he specifically uses that wording. And I thought that was just like the subtlest of callbacks, and I liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's definitely there.
But yeah, I'm not going to go searching for the word drift. It's fine. I'm pretty sure, though, it's in this section.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
Right. Should have been dead, desire to leave, rocket contrail streaked. The graceful lines of the Uharan's starship traced themselves against the blackness of my thoughts, and I sat stonily in a padded chair beneath the whir of air conditioning and the piping of soft music, while bare-chested slaves served chilled wines from fluted cups.
Yeah,
it's just like the complete opposite. That isn't what you were looking for necessarily, but I love that vibe that it evokes, which is very similar to the callback of Drift. And it's like there's this distance that Hadrian now has from all of this, and like the appreciation of what life is and what life means.
Yeah. He also, much in the same way, he really needed to stop going, "You can't," every time his dad did something that he didn't like. He's got to stop. Every time someone suggests he should be a gladiator, he's got to get better about being like, "Oh no, not for me," and not going, "Absolutely not, no." That's gonna set off some alarm bells for someone somewhere. Like
someone at some point is going to make you do it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, so he really has got to cut out that "you can't" shit. But I think that happens in either the scene before this or this one as well, where Dorian's
I think it's like, this next thing, and then again once or twice more. Like
you could be a gladiator. He's like, heavens no.
Yeah. And he's like, absolutely not.
Which I totally understand. Hey, do you want us to set you up in Master Chief armor and make you go kill your friends? No, please not. That would be the worst thing in the world. But he just needs to work on he's so good with his poker face everywhere else. He just needs to lock that one in.
Yeah, and it's Ananias here in this scene that I think does that right at the end, and then he knocks over the cup, spilling it out, and it going through the Royce shield in that moment, pouring one out literally is for his friend, which is a great little moment. I want to bring up one other thing inside of this chapter. That's the very end of the chapter, but there is this conversation that happens, and this is sort of a refrain that happens over the course of this week, part of the reason that I broke it up this way. But Melandra, Anais, and Dorian are all chatting about the eventual execution of the Cielsen, which is just sort of like a rumored thing that's happening in the background. But there's this lingering air about the entire exchange that Hadrian kind of can't shake himself out of. He can't separate himself from the line that Saltus said, "We are both homunculi." And this comes up, I think, 3 times or 4 times this week. Yeah.
I like that. I mean, you don't drop a line like that and then not have it come back up, but with how much that line stuck with me the second it happened, I feel very validated for how much it's coming up again. You know?
Yeah.
Children of the Tubes, baby. But yeah, I go back and
not
forth
the fallopian
on
tubes,
not those ones. I guess we're all children of tubes in one way or another.
Right, but they're different tubes. They're vats, you know.
I mean, you could call the uterus a vat in a certain sort of way. We float in there.
Yes, I loved my human vat.
Yeah, I mean, what is the uterus if not a human vat? I'll see.
I hope your wife can hear. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hi, honey. Love you. It's fine. We're not having kids. Yeah. So there's that line. There's also a lot in here in this whole section that like has me questioning so much about the Cielsen, so much about modern humanities changes, how it relates to the story involving the Cielsen. We get a lot about like how the the doctor that we're gonna meet in a little
Volca.
bit. Where is she from?
Tavrosi.
Tavrosi. We get a lot about how Tavrosi
the Demarchi
have kind of changed their humanity in a very different way that makes them considered heretics and things, you know? So like it's an interesting thing where there's a lot of setup in this entire segment that we read. There is a reoccurring theme about like how we have changed ourselves and how we're being lied to about certain things, and how the way that like Hadrian views the Tavrosi and the way that the Tavrosi view the Empire are very different based on how the Chantry is like set up, kind of the narrative of the universe. I'm very ready to get. I want to read. I would have preferred to do just twice the length of this section.
I'll tell you, next week I think is the longest section since the first section.
Bring it on.
But then the next 2 are real short. They're like 7 chapters apiece. They're poppy. Right. But that's because we're going to be recording them around Christmas and New Year. So it was like, we got to make them short and accessible for our sake. But yeah.
There's also like a huge part for me where like, I wonder how much reveal of anything I should expect in this first book, because there's so many books, you know.
7 books, yeah.
I'm building all these
to be
theories,
5,
and
to be fair.
Okay.
Like it was intended to be 5, so there were a number of reasons that it ended up being 7.
So the last 2 books are mostly just like filler cash grab, or you know.
For sure, that's definitely it.
Yeah, it's like whenever Supernatural hit season 5, and they're like, I don't know, Mother of Monsters, I guess, 14 more seasons. You know? Yeah. Shout out to anybody who is born in 1995 or earlier, but not as far back as like 1987. If you're in that area, you probably watched Supernatural if you were an edgy little emo kid, and you know what happened after season 5.
Yeah, very true, very fair.
That show was never great. It was always good.
And then it only got weirder.
Yeah.
More fun.
Sure.
With that, we can move into the Doctor. From there, we're introduced to a couple of characters, and perhaps one that is introduced as the most important character adjacently. We'll talk about them more when we get to her introduction specifically. But Lady Anais follows around M. Gibson, leading to a brief conversation about sailing and her escorting him when someone big enters the stage, according to future Hadrian, that of the golden-dyed Falca Ondera. Hadrian finds the Tavrosi advising a couple of the Umond, changing light fixtures, literally changing a light bulb, and intervening Doolittle strikes one. Yeah. It just like a very stupid, subtle piece of humor there for like how many aliens does it take to change a light bulb? You know what I mean?
Of course,
like,
yeah, a couple. Yeah, but they're a collectivist species. You know?
Yeah, right. The answer is just droning. You know,
how many aliens does it take to change a light bulb? Exactly. Hadrian got a little crush.
Just a little crush.
Hadrian's got a little crush.
Just a little what?
I feel like it's the first time he's ever actually liked one of the people he's interested in. Like this, it comes across as different than Kyra.
Definitely,
and then a lot different than Kat as well. Like it's
I couched those conversations for a reason, and part of the reason that I was bringing it up when we were talking about Kyra and Kat, I was like, it feels like he's intentionally obscuring these to some degree, potentially because of like some true love that like means more, right? Well, now like, we've got future Hadrian telling it to us right now,
Yeah, he's like, and there was this girl, and I don't know, she wasn't that cool. And then there was this girl, and I don't know.
But also, I embarrassed myself in front of all girls.
This girl, Hadrian's down bad.
The quote. Then a voice, the voice, first broke upon my universe. Yeah. There are moments, reader, instants that divide, that fracture time into time before and time after. I did not know it then, but my life had changed, and changed forever. That day, beneath the Ameshi sun. That's so down bad.
He's walking down the hallway with Lady Anais, and she's like, certainly you can take us sailing, or whatever they're talking about. And then all of a sudden he turns the corner and the Beach Boys starts playing. It's like, wouldn't it be nice if we were old? And he's getting like, they're like frolicking through a meadow, him and Valka, like the whole nine. I mean, that's some great prose, but I mean, at the end of the day, what happened is just hard eyes, and then like tongue lolling out, and then ooga, like
absolutely,
yeah.
Well, and again, the other part of it that I just have to mentally question is how much of it is also future Hadrian putting something back on this, putting something back on this moment.
It's hard to say. I as somebody who has ooga'd at first sight, I think it could just actually be absolutely
sure.
A downplay. I think he's downplaying it. He's pretending like he was just a little awkward, but played it so cool. But she walked around the corner and he went,
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna cue it in. We're gonna cue in the color here. It's not working. It's not working.
Put it in front of your face.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like a weird
that way.
I wonder if it's like a weird offset of like, whenever I drink my slightly pink red face against the slightly blue green thing. It's like it's doing the blue green thing or the blue red. Like it needs to see them next to each other. I don't get it.
That's
anyways,
so interesting. I still haven't figured it out. So
there's somewhere in this section, I'm just gonna I don't remember exactly when he says it, but this is one of the first quotes like ever in this entire book. It's like I understood that reference because like I don't know a lot of Shakespeare, but I know Romeo and Juliet, just for how bad he is. He says I suddenly understood Shakespeare's desire to be a glove. And I was like, oh, you're like pathetically down right now. You're quoting Romeo and Juliet about this. He's like, oh, to be the glove upon her hand so that I might touch her face.
Yeah. Valka nodded, combing a struck strand of hair from her face. And I understood Shakespeare's impulse to be a glove. Her hand lingered on her cheek as if a quizzical exasperation, and she shook her head.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Chill out a second.
I like their dynamic. I think it plays into an opportunity to allow him to rediscover kind of his scholarly side, which is a big part of why he's so attracted to her. But yeah, in this first meeting, it's just pathetic a little bit.
yeah. Adorably pathetic, though.
Yeah,
at the very least.
Like Hadrian, down boy.
Yeah, exactly. He gets real romantic about her description as well, beyond those kind of things, right? Spouting things about the impossibility of capturing her beauty in like an incredible paragraph of prose, of which he also calls poor prose.
Yeah, of course.
To describe her. Being next to impossibility and then fitting like a glove and all of these other things. And it's like, bro, just chill just a little bit.
We get it.
Yeah. I do. I love it from the romantic side of things. Like, it's very enjoyable. I feel like there are a lot of, especially first person narratives that like don't, you know, I don't want to talk too much again, cross talk about other series, but like Mustang doesn't quite get this treatment, you know?
No. I don't think Darrow has any of this level of pining in him. He didn't even like EO this much, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think the only person Darrow comes close to talking about with this much romantic fervor is Cassius, but that's a conversation for another time, and they should have kissed, but
shoulda.
I mean, there's a lot of off-screen time, if you will. Who's to say they didn't?
Yeah, right.
They had to have.
Or Roke. Anyway.
Nah, no one kisses Roke. I don't like to think about Roke kissing.
Oh,
get him out of here.
My boy.
Roke is one of those guys where they're like, well, if Darrow treated him better, he would have hung out with them. And I'm like, no, he was going to be a racist the whole time. Well, let's jump back into Sun Eater.
Buddy.
I've known nice people who are also just racist, and there's no changing that. But, you know.
Very, very true. We shall talk about this another time. So we then get a lot more on why she's actually there, why she's introduced into the story at this point, as the three find themselves, at least it seems from Anais' point of view, at a weird crossroads as they start talking about the southern continent and her research before Hadrian breaks down the walls between them even further by attempting to have a conversation in two of the Tavrosi Demarches languages.
I feel like I've been Anais in this situation. You're like on a date or something, like a first date. It's not serious, and then like that other person, they see someone they recognize and like, hey, and they start talking to you like, oh, I should just go.
Fuck.
This sucks. Okay, they start speaking Tavrosi. You don't speak Tavrosi. You know,
not one language, two languages.
Yeah, and then you're like, I do know a little Tavrosi, but then they switch it up again to a different tribe Tavrosi. Man, I hate high school. But yeah, for sure. I like the from a romantic standpoint, there's some, I think they both find intellectualism sexy, you know, and so there's this like intellectual sparring that's happening. She's a little bit more standoffish. He's trying to prove himself, but I think that he's winning her over every little second here, even with the major setback, thanks Anais, of mentioning that he was from the Colosso. He's able to kind of like spin it again. He's like, oh, I know your language. Oh, I know that language too. Oh, I know about the Xenobites. Oh, he was in Colosso. You were what? I fought with the slaves.
I was not a gladiator. Again, I was not a gladiator.
Not a gladiator.
I was Myrmidon fodder.
Yeah.
It's so great. Like you said, you mentioned like them kind of like flirting back and forth in this kind of very casual way. She flexes on him with some of the xenobiology, providing us with context on the Umand, which I think is also like a great way to casually build out the world more, to use her as this intellectual to kind of give us so much more. And she explains the term networked, which then again goes and shows us that like, while we are in a science fiction world, it isn't filled with the same ideals that we have today about like technology. What a basic thing to be missing.
I love that he understands like slipping and space travel and crush fugues, and he understands all of this like advanced technology in all of these crazy ways. But whenever she brings up networking, he's like, I think that's like this thing from Earth that involved connecting computers, but I have no understanding of it. Like networking is such a simple thing that we understand just inherently as part of our daily lexicon, that to him is like, it's like if someone brought up like a very specific like metallurgy technique to me. Yeah. I'd be like, oh, I think I do know what a Damascus
like how to make
fold
tin,
is.
You know?
Yeah, but like I don't know much about that. I think I know what you're saying, but I don't know what that means, you know? Like or yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where he has like a passing vague idea. Like I know what bronze is, but I like you talk to me about like the chemical makeup of it. I'm like, sure, man, whatever. That's not something
definitely. I know how to heat treat. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Quenching my ass. Those are different things.
Yeah, well, you do actually get a better quench if you clinch while you do it.
If you clench while you clench.
You got to clench while you quench.
Clench while quench. Clenching and quenching.
Yeah, if you want the metal to really tighten, you gotta give it an example.
So you're also saying that I need to do this naked so that I can see?
Are you smithing with clothes on, you fucking pervert? What's going
Just
on?
my apron, okay? Just the apron.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. As long as it's an open back apron.
Yeah,
You don't want nip burns for sure. We wear leather aprons. We're not crazy.
All right, just need to make sure that I'm doing it right.
Making sure that I'm doing my smithing.
No
right.
socks though, right? No socks.
One sock. Not where you think. Well, right where you think, but
damn it. Okay, with that we can move into Cage. The Cage.
Yeah, this is a weird fucking chapter. It's good, but like this is the one you're talking about.
Right,
that was definitely added in post.
I think so. I think it's used in place of like maybe a chapter or two that were like maybe setting up some other things and some like larger stakes. Or perhaps he was told that like the pacing was dragging or like just need to like clean some of these things up. And then this is sort of like a catch-all fix for like thoughts that he was trying to like slowly roll out and instead just kind of dropped. Because there aren't many chapters like this throughout the entire series, to be honest, which is why I'm like...
This one's super interesting because what it immediately like made me think of a little bit and reminded me of, not quite as prosaic as, but and again, sorry, little side tangent. We read books in ways where the book stays the same, but we change and the book changes with us in some ways. Recency bias of other books that we've read is inherently going to color the books that we read moving forward.
Right.
If I read Red Rising and then this, I would feel a certain type of way, but I read Best Served Cold and then this. In Best Served Cold, every time they start a new section of the book, there's a non-chapter. It's not in a chapter. It's just a section of story that's a flashback. And then all of a sudden you're in the chapter, and it feels so like hard to define if it's a chapter, if it's just kind of pages, if it's part of the last chapter, if it's part of the new chapter. This almost reminded me of that, but it's like listed as a chapter. You know, it's just it's a section of words that are important that doesn't really quite equate to our understanding of a chapter. It's a musical interlude of dialogue, you know, like, or not dialogue, but of words.
Yeah, the closest thing that I can equate this to within this own book, and I love the Best Served Cold comparison, by the way, I think that totally works. The closest thing within this own novel that I can see, and maybe even some of the future ones, is the gladiator victory, like shortening, condensing. So much of that is future Hadrian outside of one moment that he pops us into. Yeah. And this is kind of what you were talking about a long time ago, where you kind of expected the story to fall into a little bit more of a division. This is just the hardest line of that division.
This is the most... excuse me, beer. This is the most extreme moment of using the kind of storytelling device here.
Yeah.
I will say there's something in this very short chapter that I really love. Yeah. Where he sets up all of this stuff with Valka, and then he says, but we're not going to talk about her because much like I had to wait, so do you, basically. And I think that that's such a fun little, like, he's teasing us. He's having fun with it while he's writing it in his little library prison. You know?
Yeah. You bastard, Hadrian. You know exactly what you're doing.
He doesn't have a lot left, but he's having a chuckle about this thing that maybe no one will ever read. You know? Like, according to him, at least. He's like, yeah, it'll probably die with me buried in this fucking library that I'm stuck in. But it's, I can just see him kicking his evil little feet writing that line. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And I really enjoy that. It gives a little like almost tease of who Hadrian becomes in a way. Like I expect him to become a darker, more hardened, broader, kind of more intense character, but there's also clearly a piece of him that at the end of all of this maintains or even grows more so a sense of humor. And to me, like, that's nice that you see that there's a piece of him that's come to understand like storytelling and people hanging on a whim, and that also comes from his upbringing with his mother. But like, I don't know, that specific line was really good, but not very in character for the Hadrian we know, so it kind of teases who Hadrian becomes, and I like it.
I think that's also where we get the clever side of, like, this was way earlier, obviously, when we were talking about it, but like the little line about, you know, too many surnames, because it's like, man, I don't even know that I'm getting these right.
Yeah, he's like, I don't remember.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. There's a Hadrian right now constantly self-proclaims himself like a melodramatist, or melodrama. Like he loves melodrama.
Eudoran melodramas. He's a melodramatic man. Yeah,
exactly. Future Hadrian's like kind of a little sarcastic bitch, and I like it, So it's there's a level of jaded that leads to like a sarcastic point, like sense of humor. I think that obviously we're gonna get a lot throughout this, but I think that there's a level of everything he's gone through, everything he's been like, certain things he just can't take seriously anymore. And looking back through his life. And this was one of those kind of like, well, I had to wait, so do you. And then he goes in and talks about just kind of this transitionary moment that brings us farther into his captive
time
guesthood
in the cage. Yeah. The only thing that I want to bring up in this chapter. Go ahead.
I had whenever I was like 14 years old, my family went on a European vacation.
Oh.
And it was as close to the movie European Vacation as you could probably have. And we got stranded in Germany, but the airport paid for our hotel, but we weren't actually allowed to leave the hotel.
Bizarre.
Because at any given point they could have called. They only had the hotel number. And we had to wait for a plane.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like that. We were treated really great. Our food was paid for. There was a little sauna in the hotel, not like in the room, but leave. But we couldn't leave. And he's describing this luxury stay prison, and I've been there. I get it. Schnitzel is good in Germany. Don't have it in America. It's really good in Germany.
I believe it. The only thing I wanted to mention, which relates immediately to that stay, is like he preferred the Delian gilding. You know what I mean? Like he preferred his old cage, which is to say that like the devil in a lot of ways, which is a little callback to Hadrian's own little devil. Oh my god! Yeah, there's a moment later where he describes what he does as capering, and I was like, you little devil, you. all right, you bastard.
No, and I think that's part of what, like, it's always in the future Hadrian kind of prose, not so much in the present Hadrian, where you get these quirky little nods. The dude's sly. He likes to make a little joke here and there, and I like it.
Yeah, it's very, very fun. I think we could move into Triumph. We feel good about that?
I think we should spend maybe another half hour, 45 minutes, possibly an hour on the cage.
Cool.
We could go word by word.
Hey, we're only an hour into the episode, and people now are expecting 4-hour episodes.
Yeah, we really set a precedence with the first one.
Dude, obviously the episodes have gotten shorter. None have gone over 3 hours, I think, in edits at this point. Like, they'll all be slightly under 3. But I'm just trying to get us to the 2.5 point again.
No, we can get down there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not worried. I'm having a great time. But also, like, for other people, it's like, well, not everyone can do a 3-hour episode a week.
No, that first one was long. Right. But first one should have maybe been 2, but it's fine.
It probably should have been, but also it felt like I needed all that at once. But yeah. The beginning of books are always tough, man, especially a new series. You're introducing so much shit. If I had to read
200 pages at the beginning of Lord of Chaos before we even got to chapter 1, then you can lock in. I think Lord of Chaos might have been the one where there's just like a way overly long
is it 200 pages for some reason? I
don't remember which book. There's one that's over 100, maybe closer to 2, where it's all of the Forsaken just yapping for like.
I think it is Lord of Chaos. I think you're so right.
Chaos,
yeah,
but I could be off. It's been a long time, but
yeah, it's been a while. Cool. With that, we'll go into Triumph. Hadrian looks on in the Colosso, seeing not Dorian in the center, but instead his brother Crispin with a high matter blade and their family among the Colosso. And more importantly, maybe Ligia Vas, the natural mother of Gilliam Vas, the Intis, here among the group.
I like her even less than Gilliam.
Yeah, she's messy.
Yeah. Oh man. If you're a person who grew up going to like a heavily conservative small town church, you've You've met a Gilliam Vas before, and
I'm
wow,
related to one.
boo. Yeah. It's rough. There's something absolutely just terrifying about like a religious zealot, but the second you make it like a elderly white woman at the same time, no, thank you.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she's horrifying. And I personally also love the flash to Crispin, right? Again, this like thing that Hadrian himself could have been, and he sees himself and Crispin in Dorian in this moment.
I do like too, like he sees this flash, everybody up there changes, he sees who it would have been in his past life, but like the chanters don't change. They're still just like the faceless representation of whatever this entity is, and
which is why he left.
Yeah. Also, this chapter, and we'll talk about it a little bit more once we get a little farther in, but like I for sure 100% thought the Cielson was dying in the Colosso. Maybe that was implied, maybe it wasn't, but like I was like, oh, they're gonna set up like a spectacular.
Oh,
where they
yeah,
kill
sure.
this Cielson. And no, like they're just like, here's a drugged Cielson, and now we're gonna kill it. I was like, oh, I thought there would be like some pomp and circumstance, you know, like a little bit of showmanship here. And I guess there's a whole parade, but like my legitimate, and I didn't like put this down as a actual guess or anything, but like I really thought that we were gonna see like Switch die in like a 10-on-1 against a probably drugged and handicapped Cielson, so that like the Myrmidons could represent mankind overcoming the alien threat or something. But like, no, we just stuck him on a platform and beheaded him. So
yeah, just kind of gets his head chopped off.
There's also a moment in it where I wish I remember the specific wording. Maybe you can look it up. But he's like, he calls it like an ultimate like anticlimax, you know, and it's so fitting in the moment.
Yeah, I knew a moment of the profoundest anticlimax, artfully manufactured. It diminished the dead creature. See how easily it dies.
Yeah, I thought they were going to show like, see how strong we are for overcoming them, but no, they're setting up like this creature just dies, and it's a totally different type of propaganda than what I was expecting. So,
yeah, absolutely, very different. Yeah, what a great chapter. There are also others within this box, you know, but a few worth paying attention to until Volka arrives. They snag a pair of wine glasses. Volka is trying to work out exactly who he was before he arrived here, kind of talking about his history. This is where he almost slips up and says his name, Gibson, or his mentor, Gibson. There's another figure here that we meet as well, her sponsor, Sir Lomos, of whom we see again a little bit later. He's got this high matter blade that we've heard now twice this week, a sword on his hip, white hair, scar on his face. He seems like a sort of weathered sponsor, and in the arena plays this synthetic guitar that I couldn't help but like make mention of, you know?
So synthetic guitar, that had me think, like that almost shut me off of the rest of the chapter. I was just like, synthetic guitar. Is that just an electric guitar and that's what they call it? Like
I know.
Is like the doof warrior hanging off of the front of these floats, you know? Like or is a synthetic guitar like, is that somebody like programming guitar on a keyboard, you know? Like that's what I think of as synthetic guitar.
Right.
But what do they think of as synthetic guitar? Because like to them, electric something, everything's a little electric in space. You know? So like
yeah.
I don't know. What do you think a synthetic guitar is here?
I had a really tough time parsing this as well for the exact reason, which is the reason that I took down the note, to be honest, because I was like, what does Josh think this synthetic guitar is? It's not important.
I did have a thought, though, that it's like the Imogen Heap, like, sound gloves.
Oh,
for
interesting.
Guitar.
Yeah.
Almost, you know? Like, it's somebody playing guitar, but there is no guitar.
So literally like air guitar, but like
and it's
with
synthesizing the sounds. Yeah.
I tend to believe Christopher Rocchia, I think I mentioned this last episode, is like a big metalhead and like a big like rock guy, likes like heavy electronic music as well, by my understanding. And so I have to imagine that he doesn't think that like the guitar is going to die, but he thinks of it as like another evolution of it. And so I get the sense in my mind that a synthetic guitar is just sort of the next step, and it's not a keytar, but it's something
similar in a way
closer to that.
A keytar makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah. Okay, so get this. It's a keytar. This is more like it's a triumph for Dorian, but it is established multiple times kind of in this chapter and in a future chapter that this is really a chantry ceremony. So being part of the chantry, being part of a religion that idolizes Terran ancestry and like the histories of the old world, they're probably playing very important, very classical music from old Earth on this keytar. They're probably ripping Steve Vai on this keytar. That's what I'm assuming.
I was about to say ZZ Top, so yeah.
They're just absolutely fucking shredding the Halo 2 theme. That's what I think. They're like, this is an old Earth classical about humanity overcoming alien hordes.
Aliens, yeah.
Then yeah,
absolutely.
We should definitely bring in the...
You hear a whole choral arrangement.
The maestro survive. You know? Yeah,
love that.
That's what a good my headcanon. So,
or the what's the guy's name that did the Dune, or not the Dune, the Doom games?
Oh my god, yeah. That's gonna bug me. No, you said it. I have to look it up.
Yeah, we gotta look it up. I gotta give him credit, especially because they kind of disgraced him in the end, and he deserves the credit still.
Doom soundtracks are like my number one gem playlist. So
yeah, man. Mick Gordon,
yes.
Yeah,
Mick
deserves
Gordon,
credit.
So I always know I'm just like listening to the Doom soundtrack, and like 2 years ago, Mick Gordon was my number one artist on like my Spotify Wrapped, and it's like I have no fucking clue who that is.
And you're like, so oh, it's Doom. Yeah.
Oh, it's the Doom guy. Yeah, he rips. Nice. He's just doing gent before people even knew what gent was. You know, like.
Oh yeah, not only that, but like incorporating it in so many different interesting ways. Like he's beyond the pale.
It's thrash gent. It's core gent.
Yeah.
He does whatever. It's just something gent every time. But it's so
he can do whatever the fuck he wants, and I will listen. So
Mick Gordon and Steve Vai are hanging out on one of these floats, just competing against each other to shred harder on their synthetic guitars. And then Gilliam enters.
Right. And he's pissed as he calls out Hadrian in his first encounter, and it's clear why Hadrian had avoided the chantry, seeing the sort of way that this holier than thou asshole carries himself into every scene.
Yeah, I really, every time we see someone from the chantry, especially in this section, they fucking suck. But like, it does make me wonder if this guy sucks like to an extra degree.
He does.
Yeah, and so does his mom. But okay. So in this section, he's like digging into Hadrian, and he's asking him all these questions. And he's like, "Why were you down there?" And he's like, "I was trying to talk to the creature." He's like, "What could you possibly want to talk to the creature for?" And that's where there's a quote, "To see with eyes unclouded." And I was like, "Okay, I've heard that before. What is that from?" And I was like, "That's like a major quote from Princess Mononoke." And I'm like, is it from anything before that? That's what I need to know. Was Princess Mononoke quoting something, or is he specifically quoting Studio Ghibli? Is he using the ancient poet Hayao Miyazaki, you know?
Well, okay. So an important note, I've done a lot of studying on specifically for Lightbringer because it was necessary. The Tao Te Ching, the Taoism faith. And as a component of that, I believe that one of the sort of like common aphorisms is associated with like truth waits for the eye unclouded longing, or like truth waits for eyes unclouded longing for it. Something along those lines, of which I would not be shocked if Neil Gaiman adapting Princess Mononoke translated that line to mean the same kind of thing because he wrote the script.
But it's the specific wording. It's to see with eyes unclouded by hatred is a reoccurring line in Princess Mononoke. So I'm like, and
I would credit Christopher with Mononoke, probably not the Taoist.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting because we've had Shakespeare for sure, but like we have had those moments of
Chaucer, Lewis, you know. Yeah.
Well, no, specifically a Twilight Zone, right? Like,
oh yeah, right.
So like it's not beyond this universe to have like one of these things survive. It's actually it's
Lucas
the more
Sky,
thing.
you know, like we
Lucas
mentioned.
Sky, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see that it still works.
It's a disaster. I love it.
I really think this is a Princess Mononoke pull. Christopher, tell me if I'm wrong.
100%.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too, for the record. And it's not that as though I don't believe that he would have read any of this, because clearly he's read widely and he's very aware of rhetoric and some deeper things.
But it's using
adjacent.
the exact wording that has me. Anyways, all that to say, I thought that was a little fun one, and it's set up in such a way where he's like, there's such an emphasis on that quote that like somehow makes me think that like that specific quotation has like become somewhat important in some level of like philosophy in this future place. He's like, see with eyes unclouded, and he's like, you talking Miyazaki at me? You know?
It also speaks to like Hadrian's mantra of like art survives, right? Like art is so important functionally. Either like he's speaking Miyazaki directly at him, or Hadrian is trying to ensure that art survives in some context. So, you know, either way, I'm down.
But yeah, that was there's two quotes there's three quotes in this entire section that I actually knew what they were. One was Romeo and Juliet. That's not that hard. But I
didn't even think about this one, to be honest. I like completely glossed over it. Thanks for pulling
One was Princess Mononoke. I was like, oh shit, we're dealing with anime. I know anime.
Where's my he's over 9,000? You know,
you're over here like, this is Chaucer, and I'm like, well, this is Toonami. You know, like,
I fucking love Gundam Wing. Okay, let's not get it twisted.
And then there's one later from the Bible, but we'll talk about
we'll talk about that one for sure. I went, hang on, and then I read it, and then I went, oh no. It's like, okay, all right, here we are.
It's like, this dude quoting Exodus right now. What's going on?
Yeah. So a prayer is given before Makassim is executed. We already talked about his death, of course. His head is handed to Dorian for a proud display, and Hadrian whispers in Cielsen, Udatasa, which is farewell.
Yeah, oh man. Am I getting things mixed up? Is this the chapter where he tells Gilliam, like, you don't know everything?
No, that's later.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's setting himself up to really piss this guy off, and it can't go well, but it's so fun to read in the moment. I know that, like, probably the next section we read, I'm going to be like, yep, that's the consequences for constantly pissing this guy off. But, like, damn, it feels good when it's happening, which is the problem. I think he's just, like, really enjoying a little bit of protection against this huge piece of shit, and he's poking the bear more than he probably should. But
sometimes, I mean, you got to hit authority figures. You know what I mean? You got to punch him in the face. You got to just do it.
I don't do well with authority figures, and I have lost jobs, but you know, it's fine.
I've lost jobs, but not for authority figures, but that's separate.
I've I've cursed out the president of my company to his face. It's fine. Well, he deserved it. And then I quit on the spot before he could fire me. But yeah.
Very fair. Very valid.
Whenever people steal money from their employees, they should be called out. Anyways, moving on.
Very true. All this to say, though, that I love the very end of this. Like, the death is very unceremonious. Like you mentioned earlier, it's just sort of the state of things. He's executed. It's handed to the prince. Again, like, this glory, this like achievement is handed to someone. They didn't earn it. Which to me just feels very wrong. Like you said, it's the anticlimax. Like Hadrian said, it's the anticlimax. We expected a big conflict. Instead, it's this ceremony at best.
Justice for Maki-san, for sure. Yeah,
right. Without a doubt. Okay. With that, I think it's time for us to go into our drink segment here. If we're good to go.
I don't do that anymore.
Shit. Josh, what are you having this evening?
Yeah, I did not go book centric on this one, but totally I did go holiday centric because it's the holidays, you know?
Yeah.
I have to do a little bit of a backstory. I'm from a place called Fresno, California. Don't go. But we have like a few very small claims to fame. One of them is our Christmas Tree Lane, which is just like a couple of blocks of fancy houses that go all out for Christmas, and they shut down the street, and then like thousands of people walk down it. It's pretty fun. So I named this the Christmas Tree Lane because it is a spin on a boulevardier, which is French for man of the boulevard, and boulevard lane. It all feels right. So this is a like holiday boulevardier, which is just going to be 1 part rye whiskey, 1 part cranberry cocktail instead of sweet vermouth, 1 part Campari, and then we're going to add in 3 shakes of Peychaud's bitters, 3 shakes of Angostura bitters, 1 pinch of cinnamon, and we're going to stir that up, serve it over 1 large cube, and then garnish with 2 skewered cranberries.
Nice. Sounds
like
tasty.
Christmas. Yeah.
Sounds really tasty. What'd you have on the front half beer?
Yeah, the front half, I was having one of the larger breweries in the area, AleSmith.
Well, I remember this. I should say we talked about it in the Devil's Cut, but
it's called Party Tricks IPA. It's a nice little classic West Coast, 6.8%. Bright on the front end, a little dirty on the back end, but I like it that way. And it's a very good, very classic West Coast IPA.
Nice. Sounds tasty.
Yeah. What are you having?
Well, I'm having a cocktail. Josh, there's a high probability sometimes perhaps that like whatever I'm making exists as a cocktail to some degree because it's just ratios. You're just fucking around.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know that this exists. I don't care if it does. I'm calling it Twice a Lordling. It's not inspired by the book. It's inspired by struggling to like make a cocktail out of what my parents had at their bar.
Yeah.
Without crafting too much shit on my own. So I gifted them 2 years ago a bottle of Appleton 8-year rum that is sat on that shelf. So I'm having 2 ounces of it, 3/4 of an ounce of amaretto, of which they love and go through all the time.
How long ago did you gift them the rum?
2 years ago. So
you're having Appleton 10-year rum.
In theory, but it wasn't aged in the barrel for 2 years. But yeah, it is a 10-year. An ounce of agave, an ounce of lemon juice, and then the grapefruit soda squirt on top.
Hey, Squirt was originally, along with Mountain Dew, made as a mixer, and it rocks for it. So
I love Squirt's my favorite soda for sure. The Ruby Red Squirt in particular. Oh my god, I like just
classic Squirt. Yeah, glass bottle, Mexican Squirt, real sugar, best shit ever. I also love a classic Mexican Coke. That's probably still my favorite, but you can't go wrong, you know. Out
of the Coke glasses, speaking of, I have the final one of our lineup that we're drinking out of this evening, which is like an old school one. I've been drinking a beer from it feels weird calling it like a home state, but like a familial from Wyoming, from Alpine, Wyoming, Melvin's Brewing Company. It's just their standard IPA. They call it Liquid Blanket. Yeah, lovely beer. I way over poured this, unfortunately, in the moment. It was great on the front half, and I'm going to continue to have it on the back half. So
beautiful. How's
Josh,
that Twice a Lordling tasting?
Twice a Lordling is actually awesome. I love the only thing I would change is I actually wouldn't use agave. I didn't want to make simple. They weren't going to go through it. So it was just like, I'll use the agave that they have. Agave is just like a little bit off as far as like a sweetener goes a lot of the time.
Earthy for what you're doing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It just doesn't, it's not perfect. That's the change that I'd make. I also use like bottled lemon juice versus like normal. So I will likely remake this myself and it will be better at home. But if you hand make most of those ingredients, it'll be great. So
if you're making this at home, simple, fresh squeeze that lemon.
Yep. That's it. Those are the only changes I would make. So otherwise really tasty. I mean, yeah.
Sounds great.
Really, really great. With that, we can go into Brothers in Arms. Hadrian is caught inside of his palace, trapped, but there's a request from someone to visit him, from Polino, our old gladiator friend. While they won't leave the two of them alone to have an honest conversation, Hadrian does his best to dance around the conversation where he can, including circling one around their plan to ditch and get a ship. There's a lot that happens in this chapter. I don't have great notes on it because like it's mostly a conversation that they're having and that he's like very casually, I don't know, again, dancing through. What do you think?
It was a little bit refreshing of a chapter, but also somewhat of a weird choice narratively to have it be Polino. Because Polino's the one person I feel like that would be the least dramatic, like the person who's the most likely to hear Hadrian out and understand where he's coming from, I think. which is what happens here, and it feels nice, but like there could have been so much more drama if it was
true. Yeah,
pretty much any of the other major ones we have. I'm glad it wasn't. It feels good to like actually have Hadrian kind of have the opportunity to tell the Myrmidons in a roundabout way through Polino that like, hey, I didn't abandon you, kind of stuck here. I think it's really smart, the move that he makes where Polino's like, where have you been? Oh, well, you're like living it up now. And he's like, oh, is it cool if I leave? Knowing what the answer is. And they're like, no, you can't leave. And he's like, well, and holds his hands up like shackles, you know. He plays this. Hadrian is a weird guy. Half the time he makes the worst choices possible. Half the time he plays it perfectly. This is one of those ones where I'm like, man, you really nailed that. Like, yeah, every move he makes in this chapter, I think, is like expert level, perfect. Like playing the little courtesan game where there's what he can say, there's what he can't say, there's what he can imply. This is where he can go stand. This is where he can't. You know.
Yeah, I think similarly that it's wonderful and it's really well executed. In my mind, for that same reason. Also, so much of this book has been spent getting to know characters and then losing them, and getting to know characters and then losing them. That this is a nice reminder of like they're not done yet. You know, to some degree, like we aren't. That part of the story isn't necessarily over.
We aren't done with Polino and Switch and which means we'll probably get Crow back soon.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, and like, Saltus.
And he'll have Saltus on his ship, for sure. Right. But yeah, definitely. No, this is one of those chapters where like I'm not really sure how much I have to say about it, other than it was nice to give Hadrian a moment to clear his name a little bit.
Yeah, it's really well executed, you know.
Yeah, I like where, you know, Polino does mention like, hey, from time to time when he gets drunk, Switch still talks shit on you. But it feels very brotherly, camaraderie, kind of like none of it feels bad, you know. And then there's still that like hope to get a ship at the end.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it ends on that really positive note, you know, of like maybe there is a shot for them among the stars. And Hadrian even thinks like maybe the best I could do is sponsoring them so they could go out and live a life. Like maybe I could do that for them, you know.
Exactly. Probably not Erdo, but you know, it's fine.
Yeah, well, Rip Erdo. It's a part of the conversation that we mentioned earlier, you know.
Yeah. Like, but yeah, no, exactly. It's nice where he's like, he would have been the pilot, but he's like, now, well, maybe I'll have to hire a pilot, you know? And there's just that moment of recognition. It's a refreshing little moment that lets him have like some level of closure, even if it's not closure like for the story. In that moment, like he gets to not have to wonder what they think happened to him. He knows that like his story gets to go back and they'll get to know that he's okay, but kind of in a cage. That's nice to hear, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to see that like Hadrian actually cares about a friend, you know, like to get it reiterated in such a fashion where it's not like him just ruminating on someone who's died or who he's abandoned, you know. It's like, hey, I actually do care about people. And like,
I mean, you know, he would flay and crucify Switch himself if it meant he got laid by Valka, but still,
I will spat out my drink. Yeah.
Yeah. He cares about them, just not as much as he cares about Valka. You know?
Hey, man.
I get it. It's fine.
Apparently a you up text from Valka means a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that, we'll move into a story that does include Valka, the alienage.
She's back.
She's back, baby. We then find ourselves on our way to a unique alienage, which is such an interesting term, where the Umond are kept separately managed by Niles Engen, of whom just immediately reminds me of like the worst version of the crocodile hunter in the way that he's portrayed. Just so
or
bad.
like the wild thornberries.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Smashing. Yeah.
We get so much more of their culture though throughout this, which is interesting, including these like weird, maybe religious like wind chimes, these perfect circles that they're able to make as well, and see Volka's ire as to how they're treated in her rage, which is kind of off the hook by comparison.
there's an ongoing kind of theme with the way how they deal with Xenobites here.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I'm not far enough into the story or not to know if every time I say Xenobites, if I'm technically saying a slur, but we'll get there.
I almost feel like Xenos is the slur.
Xenos
you know what I mean?
is the slur
In particular.
For sure. Yeah. That's why I'm saying Xenobites. But Niles is a very good kind of example of a grander humanity, especially the Empire, where it's like, oh, these little guys are idiots. They can't even screw in a light bulb. Look at them. They just make a hovel. And it's like, that's all they're allowed to do. And you've never asked them to screw in a light bulb. Like if you take these other species that act and think differently through a different biology than us, and you reduce them to living like animals, then it's really easy to be like, well, they're just animals.
Right.
But it's like, you're not giving them an opportunity. You're not experiencing them outside. Like there's a very specific line where it's like to see them in their natural habitat in this. And I'm like, this isn't their natural habitat. You just said that there's like a heated fence that keeps them here. They're using scraps to make their hovels. Like, this is their natural habitat. No, it's not. The ruins maybe are, or maybe it's a different civilization. We don't know. But like, it's this idea that they're like, yeah, here they are in their natural habitat. That's like me going to San Diego Zoo and being like, elephants in their natural habitat. Wow.
Right.
Like, and even the San Diego Zoo at least cares about treating them a little nice, like, so. This whole section definitely, like, I don't know, got me a little heated. I'm not thinking this is where the story goes, but I'm hoping we just shift into like an Umand Revolution arc. But because I think that this definitely starts what is one of the more interesting kind of like things that pings. I was saying there's like mysteries teased here earlier. This section starts to tease kind of like, how advanced are the Umad, or have they been, like,
or could they be,
could they be exactly? And I think that that's like a really interesting shift of story that becomes a bit more like investigatory, I guess.
Yeah, it's esoteric. I mean, at the very least, like, they get into what's his name? It's like Nerod Philemon or something like that is pretty close to his name, where he's the guy of whom broke out and was like, hey, like, what does civilization look like? And like, why have only so few civilizations made it to the stars? It's because of language. Is it really because of language? That was sort of the question that's posited back here by Volka. She's like, I think that's a really simplistic point of view. Because like, there are other ways to communicate and exist,
and then there's a lot of conversations in here about like, oh, there's older civilizations, they just go extinct before they make it to the stars. But then, was extinction something that happened naturally, or was extinction something that happened that was thrust upon them by either a more advanced civilization or by a natural event, and it's like, it really, I think all of these things. But yeah, so you have all of these different kind of questions coming up that definitely, how do I put it, lends you to this heavily questioning, and I had already mentioned this, like, the reality of the histories we're given at this point through the Chantry, or the views that the Chantry specifically kind of like oppresses upon the people of other civilizations and our superiority towards them. And there's a lot of that within the conversation of Gilliam Vas and stuff. That happens. There's more of it later, especially in Snakes and Mongooses. But this chapter definitely, I think, starts setting the stage for that kind of like, how much of us being the top dog is just propaganda, like, how much are we specifically like truncating the development of other species so that we can pretend like they are less than?
Yeah, exactly. It leads to a very interesting conversation about like what makes a human adjacent species, or something that we consider like, and I find this fascinating by comparison, because specifically Volka within either this or the last section begins to talk about like the aliens of whom have become one with the Tavrosi culture over time. She's like, they're no more alien than like you or I. A matter of fact, to think of them as alien is an alien idea, like, because they've just become one. And that's such an interesting call. From also else.
There's like a little moment, I think it's in this chapter, where they're talking about like how many different civilizations, like the likelihood of a civilization having like written grammar.
Mm-hmm.
And Hadrian just kind of spouts off like, oh yeah, it's 1 in 25, which at this point we're aware of like the bird people and we're aware of the Umad.
Mm-hmm.
But like that really puts into perspective just how many different like Xenobite cultures they have found.
We also know that there are about 50. There are 49, I think, is what
Okay.
Hadrian specifies as well. So he's basically saying 2, you know?
Like 2 of them have that, and I guess one of them's the Cielsen, you know?
Right.
So.
Exactly. You know, like
yeah,
that's a
so. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely like cool to get this kind of more academic approach to the Umad than like the dogmatic one.
Yeah.
To
draw a different comparison that we haven't talked about ever on this podcast, actually, I compare this sort of like section in my mind to some degree to some of the more fascinating parts of Rhythm of War.
Yeah.
And it does feel like it takes that step back to kind of make us think a little bit about some of these other things. And without spoiling anything in Rhythm of War, I think a lot more in this than I do there.
yeah, I'll give it that. If you haven't read the Stormlight Archives, what you need to know is that everything either is a crab or eventually be a crab.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that called? Carcinification?
Carcinification. Yeah. It's just
carcinogenesis.
Brandon Sanderson saw like one YouTube deep dive on carcinification and went, yeah, I got an idea.
Got it.
I'll just add some depression, and then here we are.
and now we've landed. For sure. We talked a little bit about the strange tech and everything like that. Very unique species. Volca gets mad, however, when she sees sort of the marks on the backs of one of the creatures, implying that they are punishing them despite her insistence. She cites the culture, meaning Hadrian and the Empire's cultures, focus on pain through the lens of the chantry, and they're using spikes driving them into them and causing this sort of like really, I mean, kind of like disgusting reaction out of them. I don't know, what'd you make not only out of her reaction, but like this other side of like enslavement, you know, to a degree?
These are clearly an enslaved species. I don't think there's any way around it. We're literally talking to a slaver in Niles that's established. He trades Xenobites that he finds.
Of whom is guising as Niall Thornberry, you know?
Yeah, exactly. On top of that, like, there's a few interesting things. I think this entire chapter is about markings in a way. So one
very fair,
very early thing that we see is Hadrian notes that one of the Umad has like a white paste smeared across itself in some sort of, he assumes in the moment, tribal marking, which is something that never gets explored. They just assume that the Umad harmonize and become one similar kind of collectivist consciousness. But if they have tribes, then how does that distinguish them? But we don't get to dive back into that in this segment necessarily. And then we move into the markings caused by the punishments, by the whippings, and that causes this reaction in Volca that brings us very much so into the story. And that's kind of like the main thing we're going to talk about right here. But also, as we move on, we see markings that were created by the Umad and these wind chimes and these very
perfect circles
that seem almost runic in a way. And but this is the central marking. This is the marking of the marks we left on them, you know. And it's interesting to kind of see Valka's reaction. We know how Hadrian feels about this from watching one of the Umad be like tased and beaten way back when, a couple sections ago. And it's cool to get to see Hadrian slip into a moment outside of the camera where he's able to like let Valka know that he agrees with her thoughts on the chantry.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a big jump from what I was just saying, but all of this,
very true.
They mentions that she's like, well, you're all obsessed with pain, as we can see by how you're treating these creatures, and it's because of that religion of yours. He's like, hey, I am not about that. And we jump down into her kind of questioning him on that, and him having the opportunity to be like, it's heresy to be caught saying it, but
doesn't mean it's not true. Yeah,
exactly. And so we kind of, it's another refreshing moment coming off of the one with Polino. So you're getting a number of refreshing moments. Honestly, kind of the entire back half here is refreshing mini wins for Hadrian.
Yeah, it's less dark for sure.
Which tells me where we're going, because we're setting up a lot of wins. Usually that's to set you off guard. But
come to think of it, this is the most winning that Hadrian's done. Yeah,
he can't stop. Yeah, he's like, oh, now I have a pillow and a bed and a name and a girlfriend, and I get to study, and I'm drawing, and then I also get to talk shit on the chantry, and then I get to talk shit directly to a chanter's face, and
I'm just doing great.
And then I get to like show off my sword skills by beating up some little bitch rich kids, and like he just keeps winning in this chapter, but he hates it. He hates winning.
Say one thing for Hadrian. Say he hates winning.
I mean, we know about some big wins he gets later. He doesn't seem to like those either.
No, right. He blows up a sun. Does not like that.
Sounds hard to do. Sounds like an accomplishment. Maybe put it on your resume. Don't write a sad book about it.
Don't write 7 for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those moments where he like gets to actually express himself to Valka, who is the most important person in the world forever, even though he's met her twice. And they have like a nice little moment where I think they connect there.
Yeah, they connect in one of the like hovels, you know, basically, where they do actually get like a private moment for a hot second to talk and like ruminate on the circles and like how they could potentially be formed before it's so rudely interrupted by the little lordlings.
Annias does not like that. I don't know if Dorian has an opinion, but Annias does not like that.
Dorian, again, we attributed him some himbo energy, and I think that's almost doing him an injustice. He's smart enough, but he also just does not give a shit. Like, he's very much like...
I also truly believe you can be smart and still be a himbo. You know?
Very true. Very fair and valid. Yeah.
Dorian's
Kronk's not an idiot. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
Yeah.
Kronk speaks chipmunk. Kronk is a himbo.
Yeah, very talented at certain things. Is a himbo.
He can mix poisons all day, but he's still going to do his own theme music when he takes out the trash.
Yeah, he's a fucking chemist, man.
Yeah, exactly. Dorian's a Kronk style himbo for sure.
We can take that. We can accept that. But Annias is a little bit of a different creature entirely.
Schemer.
She's a jealous schemer for sure.
Which does actually make me wonder, did she just kind of ruin a few moments for Hadrian and now he's writing her bad?
You know, that I never want to harp too hardly back on the like conceit of the narrative, right? But also very likely, you know.
Like she cock-blocked him one too many times, and he's like, she was a schema. And I was like, no, she seems schemy. She seems actually schemy. I think she's planning something.
Yeah, I tend to believe that, like, the embellishments are 10% of the text, if that makes sense, at best, or worst.
If
you know?
that, yeah.
Yeah, at the very least at this point. So, so, you know, Elgin says that he's going to make him dance for them to that. And that's like, just,
I don't like
can you
that.
Imagine the fucking chagrin on like Volka's face and even on Hadrian's in the moment of like these lordlings coming up and being like, oh, they're going to dance for us. They're going to do it. It screams White Lotus to me.
Yeah. Oh my God. So much just experiencing rich people and having no way to do anything about it. White Lotus is the scariest show I've ever watched, and it's a comedy. But you know, as somebody who has worked a lot of service industry and almost exclusively for rich people, yikes.
Yeah, man, no good, no fun.
I work in La Jolla, San Diego. If anybody listening to this knows what La Jolla, San Diego is,
you're very aware.
That's where I work. I work at the goddamn White Lotus.
In a way. That said, we can move on to familiar, if you're familiar with the last chapter.
I'm familiar with the last chapter. I think that Hadrian gets his flirt on talking about the slave creatures that are seeing beaten in front of them, and it works. So,
you know, it works for the both of them, and that's what we're looking for, right?
Like, oh no, this is terrible, winky eyes, you know.
the worst wink of my life. We return to the lordlings being taught language, and Hadrian drew Dorian in this moment, like we were talking about earlier, explaining why he ended up as an artist anyway, like why he became trained in this way as this sort of like classical art form and something that he could do, which was removed from everything else. This also leads to a conversation between the trio of them, Ananias being originally locked into like a sim game, basically in a VR headset. Dorian backing Hadrian as Ananias talks poorly about Volca, even calling her a Tavrosi witch.
I definitely assume that Ananias is playing just because it's a growing in popularity, and I only assume it continues to grow. Probably like a workplace sim game, you know, like she's probably playing Umand Whipper. It's just like a fun little game she plays. She seems absolutely evil to me, and I have no reason to believe that. I just actually think she is.
I love the Umand Whipper bit. I was trying to think of like it's you know, like pressure washer sim. I'm forgetting what the name is, but it's Umand, and it's like you're just cleaning
it's
off
kind
the
of
Umand.
like Fruit Ninja, but you just have to like.
Oh god, yeah.
It's like whack-a-mole, but digital with Umand and a whip.
Very fair. Hey, and not fair, actually. Really awful, really terrible.
It seems fair to me. I don't know. Yeah. They're just basically dolphins. Am I right?
Man, the comparison to old Earth dolphins too. We kind of skipped over that, but like they're like the dolphins of old.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's in a later chapter, so we'll talk about it then. But also, there's a reference to cats that I liked.
Yes, and Hadrian has never seen a cat. Yeah, right.
Of all the tragedies.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's in a Game of Snakes and Mongoose.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah,
the jealousy, man. I don't know.
Yeah, this chapter sets up a certain level of jealousy for sure. It's an important character moment in chapter. I think I lock in a little bit more whenever they start training. Just because I like swordplay. Yeah, I know.
I'm never gonna get over it. I don't know that I ever will.
Again, fixing my camera with my beer can.
I wonder if you could switch the Empire of Silence copy, which is it's not teal in the same way.
What's
but like
it?
if you moved it over into the center, like behind, like more behind your face, maybe you'd stay focused there. It's so weird that it focuses just kind of randomly around you when you're red.
Always does it. Huh. I also think it has to do with my hat bill. I think it's worse whenever I wear a hat,
could be.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Of both of my listens, I feel like the first half of this chapter is where I tune out the most each time, and that's not a dig on this chapter. I just think I don't know what it is. Every single time, I
find that interesting because I actually really like the beginning of this chapter, and I didn't. Okay. What I would say is like initially when I read the book for the first time myself, this chapter means nothing to me. You know what I mean? Like this chapter is like practically irrelevant until Gilliam Vas a little bit later. Then it becomes really interesting. But in subsequent reads, I'm like, these two are kind of an interesting, odd pair in a way of like siblings. Yeah. And I kind of appreciate the way that they're characterized and written. But like, does it mean that much substantially more? No. Is that just something that I'm able to layer on top? Yeah.
To me, this is one of those things where the pacing of this book and the amount of ground it covers is 80% of the time a positive, but 20% of the time means that I don't feel the connection in this moment that I probably should to these characters, because who are they? I don't, you know.
Well, exactly. Yeah, and I'm not even like trying to paint future backwards. It's like because I've gotten to reread it so much now that it's like, of course, I kind of appreciate it, you know, its own right.
Yeah, and again, it's well written. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say like I would change something about it. I just know that like on my first listen through, I found myself kind of drifting mentally on a lot of these chapters. On my second listen through, I locked in, but I did drift a little on this one.
Yeah, and this was still one at the beginning.
Yeah.
Sure. So. Post the drawing, of which kind of encourages the conversation, opens them up. They kind of curse out Volca. We then move to training outside as they're like, hey, wait, you could train us? And he's like, man, these kids, fine. Maybe I could do that. Okay.
Yeah.
They train outside. He whips Dorian's ass a dozen times. They switch off every other time. Ananias once or twice herself. He comments that Dorian is like an ambidextrous fighter, which is a problem because you think you're good on both and really mastering one would be way better. And neither proved to be very competent sword people. Shortly thereafter, he's confronted by Gilliam Vas and Hadrian, and he talk as even keeled as they have the whole book, there's a distinct air of higher than thou from the chanter that then gets put into his place at the very end of the chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where that don't assume you know everything is, but we'll get to that. So, in the same way where there's some really good writing of characters and conversations and feelings in that first half, but I still kept drifting, there's not like actually a ton that needs to be said about the training montage, but I am but simple man, and when sword fight happen, I like sword fight. And so I lock back
and it's
in
well described.
Every time. Yeah. It's really well described. I like the idea that well, he definitely confirms, at least in his own mind, that they say their Blade Master sucks. Yeah. He's like, oh, fine, I'll teach you. And he's like, yeah, their Blade Master sucks. These guys don't know what they're doing.
Raban was good, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a moment of
Raban. Yeah.
Hadrian kind of realizing how set up for success he was in life. Like, I think Hadrian views being Palatine a certain way. And doesn't realize that even amongst Palatine, he was privileged in a lot of ways. Right. Because now he's here with some outworld kind of, back planet
Nobodies.
Palatine. Yeah. And he's realizing, he wasn't nobility, but he's still part of the distant succession to the throne to a degree,
Right.
The blood and power that he has is not normal Palatine. He's still in the upper echelon of the upper echelon,
Exactly.
And this is kind of one of those, I don't know how much he really sits and realizes it, but I think that it's a realization to some degree within this moment of like, wow, yeah, these guys are not on the same level that I would have been. And it's because of the training that I had, so.
And one of it's the training, right? Especially in the case of the swordsmanship, but like it's also even in the very beginning of this section with Balian Mataro, he's like, my father is like 2 or 3 times the lord that he is, and like this man rules a planet that like matters as much as it does and has mattered as much as it does to me. And I think that kind of sings through here, where it's like these children are incompetent, not because they're just lordlings, but because they also like don't have access to everything that he views that they should have access to, which then also speaks to there have to be people that are more talented than Hadrian out there, right?
There's also 100%. There's also little mentions where like, I don't know, whenever he draws Borosevo, but he doesn't draw it in a flattering way, but Anais still likes that drawing and says you really captured it. He also mentions at one point whenever he's back on the balcony, like during the Colosso fight that they watch, he starts like regaling people of a modified version of his mugging, I think.
Right.
And he's like, well, Borosevo has a dark underbelly. I do think that Anais and Dorian are less educated and less trained, but maybe have more of an idea of the reality of the world they live on than he did.
Definitely. I would agree.
I think that. Yeah, I think that there's less of a gap between them and the people. So it's an interesting view where this is a smaller world with smaller stakes, and the gap between the plebeians and the Palatine is smaller.
Yes. And also, they still flaunt it in their face, maybe harder because of that.
Well, yeah, it's Palatine.
Like,
look at Gilliam. Yeah. He wants so bad to be important because he's a little wrong, but he's a lot of wrong, but it's not because of his body.
Right. That said, like their confrontation as it initially happens, a word, sir, and then like this whole like kind of breakdown that happens where it's like, what are you doing with them? And it's like, well, I'm teaching them based on what I was told to do. I'm here, and it's like, what are you playing at? And everything else that kind of happens.
It's like, I was hired to tutor them, right? Like that's public knowledge,
buddy. And he's like, we've heard whispers of lawborns in the castle, and it's bad. And it's
like it's probably me. This is not a private position,
right? And on top of that, in his head, Hadrian's thinking, well, I mean, like, but you're like a natural birth, so like, fuck you. It's just.
You're not a child of the tube. Get out of here.
Yeah, right, exactly. This is another moment when Saltus's quote pops into his head, right?
Yeah.
They have this very intense exchange. Go ahead.
I'll say Saltus is right in the sense that Hadrian is closer to a homunculus than he is a human. in the same sense, I think Saltus is closer to a Palatine than this Gilliam fella. So
right, maybe
he's a child of the tube. You know, they got more in
child
common.
of the tube.
I know Gilliam just wants to be Palatine so bad, and he makes it everyone else's problem, and I really hate him. But
yeah, Gilliam's a shit, and like I don't know how else to put it, but like it's important that a story have an antagonist. Obviously,
he feels like our first real antagonist, besides Hadrian's
father,
dad. Yeah,
right. But like and it's not even cartoonish, but he's also just like a circumstance, or like he's a victim of circumstance to some degree that he didn't have a choice in, you know?
I've known Gilliam Vasses in my life.
No, I definitely get it. I'm just trying to give him like the littlest credence of doubt here. Where it's like, you know, he couldn't help being born in the way that he was.
To me, like a part of the problem, though, is
that doesn't excuse your behavior.
Is that his problem is that he isn't as high above everyone else as he wishes he was, because his blood isn't tube blood, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If his problem was like, oh, I have a limp, oh, I'm looked at as less than, it's one thing, but it's the problem that he has is that like he thinks he should be even more above everybody else. Yeah. And he's already so above everybody else. And that comes across to me as billionaire looking at billionaire with a little bit more billions being mad and making it the rest of the world's problem as he takes
the Mountainhead, you know, the movie. Yeah. I don't know if you watched it on HBO, but
I don't know.
Oh my God.
No.
Highly recommend, written by the guy who did all of Severance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very excellent little 2-hour movie. Really recommend it. But it is like I said it already, but he is holier than thou. And I mean that in a couple of different contexts. He has to be, because he feels like he needs to wield that superiority complex over other people. But then in addition, the Chantry is just innately holier than thou.
Yeah.
So like he has like double the will and like double the coloring as an antagonist in that way, where it's like, man, I hate you on a personal level and I hate what you stand for.
Look, all I'll say is my first job ever was a Chick-fil-A. And if you've ever worked for a company that is inherently outwardly and obsessively Christian while also being inherently outwardly and obsessively capitalistic, you've probably met a Gilliam Vas in the middle management.
Or two. Yeah.
So it's just it's wild to intermingle power, religion, and inferiority complexes all at once, and it's a terrible it's a terrible cocktail that I've had to drink many times in my life, and I really hate this guy.
Yeah, he's despicable. I do love that tense conversation that we've talked about a couple of times, circling around then him consorting with the Cielsen, threatening him vaguely from a distance, and Hadrian spits back, "Don't assume you know everything." You said it earlier. Vile line. So good.
Vile line, aura farming to an incredible degree. Darrow could have said that.
Yeah, you know? Right.
Also, the first of a few, maybe not the first, but the first major of a few missteps by Hadrian, in my opinion.
But sometimes, man, you gotta say the right thing, and it is a misstep. You know,
he said it felt good, and I was like, oh, now he's gonna make your misery his entire life. But yeah, no, it felt good in the moment, but like I read it and I was like, hell yeah, get his ass, Hadrian. And then I made it like halfway through the next chapter. It's like, oh, wait, maybe he shouldn't have, though.
Yikes. Big yikes. Yeah.
But then we get a little more Valka.
Yeah, we got a little talks. I named this subsection because I'm naming them for you, so that we can kind of try to like keep things contained within small regions. This one I called Foreign Bodies because of alienage, and then the familiar, which is obviously that. And then
yaddies, you know.
Yeah, right. There is some excellent art that accompanies this section. I believe done by John Barry Balian, of whom did what I think is called the Diamond edition, originally the Diamond, now the High Matter edition of the first book. And it's Valka in the windowsill. And I'll definitely send it to you so that you can look at it. But anyone listening to this, go check it out. John Barry Balian.
Valka in the windowsill, really? Yeah. She also drifts towards windows.
Well, she's sitting.
How very
or as he describes.
Ed-
Maybe she drifts.
Oedipician.
Yeah, Oedipal. Yeah,
yeah, Oedipal. How very Oedipal of him.
of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can move into little talks here. We open the chapter reminded again of the inevitability of the Jadian satrap governor visiting and the continued practice that the lordlings go through to learn language here. We learned a lot more about Jad and the way that they withdrew from the empire in their own unique way, becoming an empire of supermen of sorts. This is really interesting, I find, especially in comparison to the Tavrosi Demarchy and some of the other things like you had mentioned earlier. A lot of world building here, but it seems like the Jadians are mostly patricians based on what's said.
Yeah. The Jadians seem fucking cool. Even from so correct me if I'm wrong. No, I think I am. Never mind. What was Dimitri?
Dimitri is from Jad, yes.
Okay, yes. So Dimitri and Dimitri's wife aren't like highborn Jad people, and they're still like the most beautiful people you've ever seen, and just like physical specimens. So like a lowborn Jad is like an exquisite human. They're killing it. They're doing good. There's probably a really dark side to how they got there too, but like it's super cool to hear like, oh, this society, they're just all Captain America. You know? Yeah, it's fun. In a world where there's all this technology, they really went for the syndrome when no one's super, or when everyone's super no one is approach, you know? They just kind of all have Praetorian bodies, basically. So yeah,
it begs interesting questions, right? About like, how did you like break off? Like, how also did you like sequence your own genomes at some point to like make this happen in a way that you could separate, you know?
Yeah. Well, it seems like, so he mentions like there was so the Jadians come specifically from the Mediterranean, which were the last ones.
They're also
to, like,
a specific subsect. Yeah.
But then within that, they fought a rebellion, and they didn't necessarily win, but they somehow won their own independence, where they were allowed to make their own choices about their genealogy outside of the empire, but they're still like connected to the empire, if not. There's a lot of world building in this like one paragraph. It's it goes hard. Yeah. So
yeah, and that's part of the reason that I brought it up. Like, it is literally a paragraph, but it's like, man, there's so much in here. I just want to see what you think about Jad. This is where we get the most meat on the bone so far.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jad is probably the most extreme example of what this like genome sequencing that is popular in just general culture at this point can do on a wide scale. So like increase humanity's abilities across the board rather than using it to create a hierarchy structure.
Right.
And then Tavrosi is cyborgs, right? Like that's what we're led to believe. So we have like Supermen, cyborgs, and the church. Those are our three major factions
so far.
Right now.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And then the Normans, of whom we have no idea about, like they exist, right?
Well, they can't make a ship for shit.
And the Lothrians, you know, of whom like are like a little bit separate as well. So there's
like
some
the
like
Lothrians. I don't even think I have the slightest clue of what's going on over there.
The only thing we've gotten from the Lothrians is that like their language is really unique, devoid of pronouns. You know, like very like
they're collectivistic to the point where nobody has an individual personality.
Right.
So we've got space monks, we've got space Captain Americas, we've got space church, and then we've got space cyborgs. I need to sit down with Christopher and ask how much Warhammer he played before.
A lot. This is definitely inspired by Warhammer. There's no doubt in anything that he said that it's not. I mean, like
but not in a way where it feels Warhammery at all. It's just all right. I'm seeing our Warhammer factions lining up.
I do think to give credit to Rockio and like Warhammer 40K in and of itself. I do think that the Empire is definitely more reminiscent of Space Marines, intentionally so, in its own way. But
I'm excited. I'm very excited to go to Jad and see all the super hot super people, because they also make like a competition of breeding specifically for beauty. Is something that was established. So they're all just like super hot and super capable. I want to go to Tavrosi so bad. I want to see the cyborgs. Like, I grew up on Treasure Planet being my favorite movie. I want to see the cyborgs.
You get that image of Volca with like the spider webs down her arm that's like so cyberpunky and like reaches all the way from her elbow.
It's so cool.
You know, and that's on one arm and the other's plain. So it's like I've got this one cyborg arm and then I've got the other arm that's just normal. You know,
they did that the worst of heresies and mingled their flesh with that of machines, and all of a sudden became the only culture I, Joshua, care about.
The only culture that I, Josh, am attracted to.
Yeah, all of a sudden I want. Look, I love muscle mommies in the real world. I love machine mommies in the future one. Just
hell yeah.
It, you know?
All right, love that. That said, this gives way to a more interesting scene as we're informed that Valka and Hadrian have been spending evenings together talking and becoming more familiar. He shows up for another such little talk and finds her door unlocked, her clothing strewn around the floor, a sort of mess that he hadn't expected out of her. He wakes her and they chat in the window, and they chat about Cielson and their writing in sort of this like cute, flirty, xenobiologist sort of way.
Yeah. Hadrian's like, oh, the door's unlocked. I guess I'll go in, you know? And then there's moments that like reflect how young Hadrian still is. I mean, I guess he's in his 50s now, but like lived life, you know, he's still in his early 20s, a little mid 20s, I guess at this point. He walks into this room and he's like, oh, her panties are on the floor, and that reminds me I'm not supposed to be here. And I'm like, it's weird, Hadrian, but yeah, it's fine, you know? So I think he's showing up. He's just a little he's just a young horny guy who's never really experienced like he's experienced love with Kat, I think, in a way. But that's more of like a mutual relationship where they both like withstood the storms of misery together. He's as close to being himself in this specific section as he's been yet.
As he's ever been.
As he's ever been. It's his only chance where he can be like, hey, I'm like a highborn person who appreciates science and then can actually build a relationship off of that. And he is fucking smitten. And then he does the weird thing where he goes into a room and it's unlocked and notices weird things. But then he finds her just sleeping in a chair. And I for sure thought she was dead. Reading this the first time.
Assassinated?
Like,
toast.
Yeah, he's like, I go into the room. It's dark. Maybe it's just the power outage. And then I see her, but she's not moving. I was like, dead. She's dead. She's dead. Super happy she's not.
Yeah. I love that. Obviously, I love that she's not, because she's such an interesting character. But also, it's great because like there's this compelling moment between them where it's like there's this potential, right, that he sees. There's this distinct fear that he has walking into the room that she's potentially gone and dead, that someone's broken in, and she's like, oh, a big strong man stepping up, the big young man like stepping up to intercede on my behalf. And it also paints this interesting picture where like she's also not ageless. Hadrian's not ageless by any stretch, but like she also like isn't affected by age in the same way. And she's older than he is. We also get kind of a nicknamey kind of thing that happens here. Anaraic means like something very derogatory, clearly in the language as previously spoken in the last chapter. And Anarian is what she ascribes to Hadrian as they're kind of having their own conversation here in the moment.
I don't think I picked up on that at all.
It's a close like linguistic, yeah. Anaraic.
Where did Anaraic come in?
Anaraic was, I believe she calls Elgin in Anaraic. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Or the guy or the dooliter of whom hit the beasts when they were changing light bulbs. One or the other.
Oh, so it's like barbarian in a sort of way.
Because he calls it barbarian specifically.
Okay. Yeah. Because he is a gladiator in her mind,
right?
Even though he's,
but Anarian is like a softer version of that, which is what she calls him.
Interesting. Yeah. And so they already have this teasing relationship where she's like, "You brute," and he's like, You're just a little scientist who doesn't know how to clean your apartment. And she's like, you kill people for fun. And he's like, no.
And she's sitting in the window. You know, the wind's drifting over her.
Yeah, she drifts towards windows for sure.
Yeah. Seeing absolutely a little bit Oedipal there. We're not going to downplay that, but
hey, there's like some realism to the Oedipal complex. It's fine. But
yeah,
we all hate our mobs. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you're in like a whole situation in your life.
No, it's very funny. I was caught between like making the joke and not making the joke, and it's funnier that I'm trapped.
Yeah. Do you hate your mom or do you love your mom? Kross, say something now.
Do we say it? I think I might be on camera from other angles.
No. Moving on.
But yeah, this lovely talk is great that happens between the two of them. You know, they stir and dig further into her motivations that of exploring the stars, as many of the Xenos as she can, which she also says this, which is what makes me think that it's maybe not a slur like we were saying earlier, but like other people use it like it might be. It's tough to parse precisely.
I mean, I've definitely like also experienced people saying things or even said things myself where you just don't know it's a slur. It's just part of the language that you've learned.
Yeah.
And this, like, we're speaking... I actually don't know what the imperial tongue is called at this point.
I believe, if I'm correct, it's Galstani, which is the sort of like Indian English blend.
So we're speaking Galstani. That's not her first language, so she's just using the words she understands as they come.
Right.
For that, like, I don't necessarily, you know, if it's your secondary language, you might not understand that something has a connotation. But yeah,
definitely.
But she's also like really smart, so she probably knows, but that's fine.
For sure. Yeah, she talks about the Demarchy again, like I mentioned earlier, like the Xenos, like just being incorporated. They're not alien in any meaningful way anymore. And there's this deeper promise of what's to come between the two of them, as like there are many dinners like this shared going forward.
Yeah. And even later, I think there's like a mention to like, oh, and we had like another one of those evenings. I think that's like where we end this section.
Yes, exactly.
But,
it's like asterisk, you know, like a line break.
This is like the
basically.
First of their little talks, but we get more of them. But we don't get more of them. We don't
get more of them. They have more of them.
Yeah. Man, it's cute to see like an actual like almost, especially in this sense, because what she is interesting, and they talk about it where she's like a city state upon itself, right? And that might be in the next chapter or it might be in this one, but the way how like her government works, everybody's an equal representative of the state, so her as a Davrosi here is basically she is representing the state. So if they were to say she's a heretic, they're saying all of Tavrosi is a heretic, and they can't do that. So like she has like a little bit of this like leeway, which essentially puts her in like a very strange near Praetorian level, I guess, within society.
Right.
And we know Hadrian is a Palatine, but he is currently presenting as Praetorian. So they're like, it's his first time ever, I think, actually existing on basically an equal level with a romantic interest.
For sure.
With Kyra, obviously, he's way above her. With Kat, I would argue he's below her, you know, like, because she showed him how the streets work. He knows he's like Palatine or whatever, but in actuality, that doesn't matter. This is the one time where they're kind of meeting on equal fields in a lot of ways. And it's cute. And they talk about science, and I want to talk about the science they talk about.
But we have to cut from there to a game of snakes and mongooses.
I feel like, right now we can't talk about the science they talk about.
We can talk about the science. Do you want to talk about the science? What do you have?
Specifically, they just talk a lot about like the way how the runes work for the Umad.
Oh, yeah. Right.
They talk about runes with
Caligan.
Umad, and then they specifically like show how that works within the Cielsen language. And there's similarities, and that had my like, yeah, it was like Kill Bill going on in my brain.
I mean, especially because like Hadrian is so analytical that he's like drawing these comparisons and she's never made them, which is the other side of this, where it's like, oh, hey, I have something to contribute to your science,
which I should say goes even back to
the alienage. Yeah.
The alienage, where he like touches the wind chimes they made and makes an immediate connection where she's like, it took other people decades to figure that out. And I think he just has like such a special place for linguistics and cultural studies.
Yeah. Right. He's a sociologist in a lot of ways.
He's making these connections, and I'm like, oh, there's something there. There's really something important there between the Cielsan poetry language and the Umad like runic language, which no one will say is a language, but it's a language. Yeah.
It's definitely something. It's representative.
That's all. We can move on. I just want to say there's more going on with the Umad language than we're led to believe. And
absolutely.
I don't think it necessarily has connections to the Cielsan language, but it does give us some sort of bridge. There's something going on. And there's a lot of people who don't want us to know what's going on. They're keeping it secrets from us. They're the Chantry. They know more than they're letting on. Welcome to Snakes and Mongooses, baby.
Baby. For sure. Okay. So with that, we can move into that Mongoose chapter. we then find ourselves at the Count's table, accompanied by many different factions, including representatives of the Chantry, Volca, Alomus, Basander Lin, Liada Orgir, the Vases, variously, and more. But in particular, there's a call out to Basander Lin in a shared future fighting each other over control of the army. And so many other details as his last friend, in addition to so many other things, so many questions.
Oh my God,
what do you think about this
introduction?
Guy
for the first time, and he's like, of course he'll become this, and this.
So many things in my life. Yeah.
He's none of those. Which, in those listings, I don't know where it goes. It sounds like he'll become his enemy, but like respected.
My last friend, my enemy, the hero, the phoenix, my savior, the real victor of Perfugium, I believe. There's so many different call outs here.
That he says like that time I failed, basically, somewhere in there.
Perfugium, I think, is the
insane stuff. And I love that it's not just a framing device that we use at the beginning of this book, but he cuts back to it so much. But also in a way where, like, I know that if I wasn't doing this podcast, if I was just reading this book, the next time this guy pops up, I would be like, oh, he's
Basander, it's Basander. Yeah.
But I don't think I would remember all those details, right?
Yeah,
like, I'd be re-surprised by them as they came. God damn. He's also really cool, and he's like,
he like cares. He's really interesting.
He's been in the service for like 200 years, if you count fugue time, but even 18 outside of it. That's a lot of service. Like,
that's war. Yeah.
This guy's done 18 years of war over the span of 2 centuries.
Well, and that gets into the idea that the Empire has recently changed from like doing conscripted service for time to conscription for life, which is a whole different change. The Demarchy also uses like technology as like an element of their warfare for their peace. It's so interesting to see these different cultures on those layers.
There's a lot of cool stuff set up here. I also like that Hadrian is at a position on the table. Like, it's noted that he's at a position on the table that does have some power. Like, he's 12 down, but like he's still like ahead of a lot of people. And maybe that's one of the little snags that makes Gilliam really mad as we move into the next part. Or not just Gilliam, but Gilliam's mom, rather. But yeah, he mentions he has like a spot of some small significance.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're here at this dinner. I also really like the line, the table was dripping with food. Like,
yeah, right.
It's falling off the sides. Like, so essentially we move into this like lavish dinner, and it is as uncomfortable as every family dinner party I've ever been a part of is.
Right. And maybe worse.
Well, you haven't been to my family dinner parties.
Well,
nobody punched anybody. But yeah, so he's he's making a scene a little bit here. And this is one of those moments in this book where he's aura farming, and I'm so here for it, and I'm having a good time. And I'm like, hell yeah, give it to him. At the same time, there's that other part of me that's like, oh no, this is where he's making big mistakes.
You got to know what you're doing.
Big mistakes in this chapter. Or if you want to talk about you want to set up those mistakes? You want to talk about what happened?
I mean, Hadrian is forced to explain like where he sits, like in a lot of different things based on what he's said so far. Again, why he speaks Cielcin to a wider audience, a tutor who taught him many languages. He could just hold them, and so he like kept all of them in his mind. That's why he can speak so many. But this doesn't really hold water against like Basander Lynn's deeper scrutiny, which is not to say much of Gilliam Vas's scrutiny a little bit later, right? And that we are aware of. They both kind of like, they're pinching their chins like, really, dude? Like, really?
But we hit this point where, man, so we do get really cool conversations with the soldier guy. I don't remember his name off the top of my head here.
I mean, Basander Lynn's one of the soldier guys.
Yeah, the one where he's like, he will become an important figure.
Yes, yeah, Basander. Yeah. Yep.
But like for me, on my first read, I was like, cool, can't wait to get to it. Doesn't land that strong in my mind outside of that.
Right.
I mean, definitely does in a way where I'm like, this is going to be a cool character. Looking forward to it. What I remember from this chapter is everything involving the Gilliam's mom. What's her name?
Liena Vas.
The big chanter. Number one
chanter.
It's
like Lieta Vas.
Yeah. Everything involving...
Liegia Vas.
Liegia Vas. Everything involving that, like... That verbal sparring that happens between the two of them. That's what that chapter is to me.
Yeah. And it's haunting, in the way that, like, that kind of overrides a lot of the rest of it, because it's like those are just some lines exchanged, but yet they carry so much weight, and we get to understand why, like, Gilliam is the way that he is, because, like, she is that, like, abusive mom, in a lot of ways. But also
like, Carrie, like, there's a moment where he's like, this is the woman, earlier, this is the woman that chose to carry a Palatine child.
Which is a bizarre choice,
which
right?
they know you're like not supposed to do. So like, and then came out deformed, and then probably hates him a little for being deformed, but also she chose that knowing that's an option.
She chose to carry something to term, which is very different
in this world.
Yeah. I love that the Vosses intervene within this conversation, like you're mentioning, hearing Hadrian spouting about Cielcin, and they say there's scripture back to them that they're removed from the system. They like say so many different things, but the one that stood out, and we already know that it hit for you too, is they shall not suffer a witch to live, which is Exodus 22:18. As an older thing that survived deeper in this empire, what a fucking take! As we begin to get all these like religious citations,
love, like the context in that statement. He's like, they're like, oh, why do you speak Cielcin? That seems like a heretical thing to do inherently. And he's like, well, and he plays the game, and he's like, we'll have to talk to them eventually, if nothing else than to accept their surrender. And that's where this comes in. They're like, no, we don't want to surrender. We wipe them out. And it's like, no, specifically communicating with the enemy is heresy. And we've been given that multiple times now. Like, speaking to the Cielcin is heresy. And yet, Gibson's hot Hadrian this. So, like, that makes me wonder what's going on with Gibson, too, to a degree. But, this is not common knowledge. We're not even supposed to, like, we have studied their language, because of course we do, but we're not supposed to know it. And even to commune with them is heresy, because they don't want us to know what they might say. At the end of the day, we're supposed to believe they're monsters. I don't think they are. Neither does Hadrian. Maybe they are, but, like, there's something being kept a secret by the Chantry here, because we are not supposed to learn their language. We are not supposed to communicate with them. And then whenever Hadrian says, like, I just wanted to talk to them, they said, just so they can give us their surrender one day, which every other, as far as we at least have the information for it, Cenobite culture that they have encountered surrendered to them, and they enslaved them. And yeah, we would do that to the sea elves too. That just makes sense, right? And they say, no, they have to be wiped from the face of the earth.
To be exterminated, yeah.
Should not suffer.
Cleansed.
A demon to live, she says specifically.
And that leads so interestingly into Hadrian's, like, sort of metaphor that he kind of walks his way through, like the story, right? He explains mongooses and snakes and how they fought way back when as a sort of proverb for violence between species, but also that you can never be certain of if things are rigged or not, and like who is really fighting who, and like the presentation as such. You can never be certain of who are snakes and who are mongooses. Before Miss Voss tells him, "You would make a good priest," as a final line of the week.
Sure he would have, and he was set up to be the best of priests. He might have been giving her orders by this point.
Orders.
But yeah, it's kind of wild that Dig and like how she has no way of knowing, or maybe she does. I haven't read the next chapters yet. Of exactly how like intense it is. To jump back a little, can't suffer a demon to live. He corrects her to witch, and they talk about this like old cult that saying is from. That's wild. I think that's fun.
Christianity being an old cult.
Just one of them. It's like how we talk about mythology. We're like, oh, is that Greek mythology or Norse mythology? I don't know. It's one of those old cults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The most important religion
Friday
in the
is named
world
after
for
Frigg
1,000
and
years.
Venus.
But
so
it
it's like,
doesn't
okay.
really matter. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And then now we're here, and they're like, just bantering back and forth. One line I want to call out from earlier is, well, he says, like, actually, it was, you don't suffer a witch to live. And then she says, well, what else would you call someone who speaks with a demon tongue? Which is, we were given Hadrian demon-tongued, right? In the very beginning as one of those notations. And now that gave me the understanding of where demon tongue came from. He is the translator of the Cielsen. He is the one who can communicate with the Cielsen in a way outside of what the chantry will allow. That's my opinion.
Or accept. Yeah.
So Hadrian demon-tongued, and she says, so one who speaks with a demon's tongue, what would you call that but a witch? And he says, such an absurd thing to say. The only thing I could do is to also retreat into absurdity. I prefer Magus. That's a good
absolutely correct. It's
that's
so good.
Such a solid
Such
spin.
a good comeback. Like,
see, that's a good comeback. Solid spin, and then he buries his own grave like a second
deeply
later.
And deeply funny in a way that like only Sun Eater can be, you know, like it's
Yeah.
we're so esoteric that esoteric humor is like good, you know.
Yeah, it's like oh, that was funny because of everything else I've read for 600
the context
pages at this point.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. Anything else that you wanted to raise on mongooses and snakes? It's a fucking sick chapter. It's a good culmination to lead us into like climax.
She tells me to be a good priest, and that's wild. It's a wild spot to end this. And then, well, I honestly don't have a lot of feelings about the very end of this, because all that happened every time we ended this is me go, and then I stop the next one, because, like...
You're panicking. Yeah.
It's such a lead-in to whatever's going to come next. It's such a cliffhanger you left me on. I almost can't speak to the end of this chapter without having read the next chapter.
Right. Okay, so with that, next week is Gaslight through Caliga. Gaslight through Caliga. Those ruins in the far distance.
All right, so we're going to Gaslight
title.
Gatekeep Girl Boss, and then we're going to watch the horniest movie of
Gaslight
the 60s.
Gatekeep Caliga. I don't know.
All right, so we're going to see Heron Mirren's Melons? I don't know. What's going on here? The movie Caliga, I think, had Helen Mirren in it.
Absolutely. Okay, so with that, thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast. You can find us on social media, Words and Whiskey Pod, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, YouTube. Find us wherever you like. Listen to us, watch us, whatever you'd prefer. We're there. We're trying to be there. If you want to reach out to us directly, you can do so, wordsandwhiskyshow@gmail.com, or our Patreon, which Josh is going to talk about. He says burping.
I sure will. Beyond that, if you'd like to support what we do here, check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/wordsandwhiskey. There's an exclamation point in the typing, but I don't think that's part of the URL.
It's not there in the text.
Yeah. We've got all sorts of bonus content. Absolutely, and I don't say this lightly. I don't say this at all. Raring to go over there.
Oh my fucking God. This is meant for you to edit it, Josh. And this was
and
me
I did. That was
on
my
one
edit.
evening.
And if you want even deeper conversations beyond what the Patreon can give you, you can find me in San Diego somewhere on 30th Street on January 3rd, 2026.
We're so excited.
Come ask me.
It's only a couple of weeks from now.
Up and
folks.
down.
A couple weeks. Beyond that, leave us a review on your preferred platform of choice. And yeah. Sick.
Join the Patreon. I really need the money.
No. Well, you can support all the shows that we do and everything else anytime, anyway. So